on average, just in the United States, about 220 people die every single day from an opiate overdose. By the time we finish this show, 8 to 10 people are going to die from an opiate overdose. If we get even one person, one viewer with this program that we might be able to help with some of the information that's shared on here, then it's all worth it. Hey everyone, it's your old pal Glenn Victor coming to you live from Orlando, Florida. We are here at the PFX Media Dare Me Podcast Studio in West Orlando. Ordinarily, I'm coming to you live from over on the West Coast in Sacramento, where I live now. But I'm here visiting my old second home, Orlando, Florida, where a lot of y'all know I lived for 30 years. If you follow this podcast or follow me on social media, friends, family, or whatever, you know this is truly my second home. And so I'm here visiting, and I'm so happy to be coming to you live here from the PFX Media Studios, along with our old pal, Dean Baker, who we're going to bring on live onto the show right now. He's here with us at the PFX studio, and we also have a couple guests that we're going to bring in just a little bit and introduce as well. But Dean, we are so happy to have you back because, again, for our regular viewers and listeners to the show, we didn't have Dean last week. He had a mishap on a motorcycle and broke his freaking leg. So, Dean, thank you for being with us here today. I know, you're still recuperating in a wheelchair and on crutches and having trouble getting along, but, all the more reason we appreciate you being here with us today, okay?
I'm, funny thing is we were talking last Sunday. Of course, I was going into my surgery Sunday at about noon, so I think you and I were talking probably at 11. I'm going, I need to set up the stream, and then I need to figure out, okay, Glenn, you and I need to talk. You need to, but I've been trying to prep you over the last bunch of weeks. How to possibly do this on your own. And you, from what I saw, man, you did great. You did awesome.
Pulled it off. We're going to talk with Dean a lot more in just a little bit, y'all, about what happened with him and his surgery and recovery process, because Dean told me we could talk about this. He was prescribed opioid pain medication, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But first, y'all, I'm so excited to bring our guests on that we have on the show today. It's a couple old friends of mine. We have Marvin, Lilly, and Marla Stevenson. Welcome to the Dare Me podcast, y'all. We're so glad to have y'all here with us. Marvin and Marla are old friends of mine, y'all, and I think a good way to describe y'all, if you don't mind me saying, is recovery advocates here in the Central Florida community and really beyond. And of course, Marvin, you and I, we were talking before the show today, we've known each other for like over 31 years. Of course, we're dating ourselves, y'all, but we go back a ways. And Marvin, you run the Mind, Body, and Soul Recovery Houses here in Central Florida, correct?
I do.
And we talked about that a little bit on the show a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to have a deep dive conversation with you about that.
Hey, I'm stoked to be here, man.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
We're so happy you're
talk
here.
About all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, man, we're just getting started. Yeah. And we have Marla here, too. And, of course, Marvin and Marla, you guys know each other from the recovery community. And, Marla, you and I are old friends, too. We go back a long way. And we talked about you on the show a couple of weeks ago because you just won an award from Orange County here in Central Florida for your Drums in Recovery music therapy program, correct?
Yes, we did.
Oh, my God.
Thanks for doing that.
Oh,
that
man.
Awesome.
Well, and when we did that, I actually contacted Marla and said, oh, my God, man, we got to have you on the podcast to talk about this. So it just worked out that we were able to have both of y'all live here in the studio. I'm in Orlando. Cool. I'm just fucking loving this, man. This is like great. So thank you guys so much for being here. I think this is a perfect opportunity for me to do just a very brief introduction to what this podcast is all about, because we get new viewers and listeners every week, y'all, because we are literally live on like 6 different Facebook pages, half dozen different YouTube channels. We're live on LinkedIn. We're live on X. We're live on Threads, all the things. And a lot of times we get new people who join in each week. They just see we're live. They click on it like, what's this Dare Me podcast all about? What the hell is that all about? Well, tonight, because we have our guests here in the studio, I'm going to do a very short version of that, y'all. This, by the way, is episode 39 of the Dare Me podcast. So if you want to hear my whole story, believe me, you can go back and listen to or watch previous episodes because I tell my story in great detail. But tonight, I'm just going to give you the short version. I got hooked on opioid pain medication. Long story short, I broke my ankle. I got real sick. They prescribed that shit. I knew better. I never should have taken that shit. I have a long history with addiction, and I never fucked with opiates before. I was like a cokehead back in the day and a pot smoker and a drinker and shit. But you'd think I would have known better with it all being in the news and all that other shit. And I don't know, I guess, the short version is I justified it, y'all, because it was prescribed by a doctor. I broke my ankle and I got fucking hooked, man. The proverbial story you hear about people getting prescribed opiate medication and getting hooked. And that's what happened to me. It was horrible, y'all. It didn't start off that way. The shit works great until it doesn't, as the old saying goes. And them last couple of years, they got bad for me. Thank God, I'm so grateful to tell y'all, I will have 2 years and 9 months clean again tomorrow. Tomorrow, December 11th. Yeah. And as the old saying goes, y'all, I say it for the cause, not necessarily for the applause. I mean, I am very, very proud of myself. I work hard to get where I'm at with that today, y'all. And one of the things that I did that helps me in my recovery is we started this podcast in hopes that we might be able to help someone else too with some of the information we share on here, like what we're going to be talking about tonight with Marvin and Marla. So I can't thank y'all enough again for being on the show with us today. And we're going to get to y'all in just a second, but I want to hear y'all's input on this too. Dean, I'm just going to be honest with you, bro.
Okay.
Dean is not one of us, y'all. And when I say one of us, Dean is not an addict. He's what, as you guys know, we call in the program, a normie. Yeah, a normie.
Norm.
Yeah. But I told Dean not long ago, I said, whether you know it or not, Dean, you actually are a part of the recovery community now. You're almost 40 episodes into this podcast with us. So when you told me you broke your leg, Dean,
yeah,
I'm just being honest, bro. The first thing that went through my head was, oh, fuck, damn well they're prescribing him some pills. And we had that boy Eric, who's a regular viewer and listener to our show, who's still struggling. He's been very honest with us in the chat room that he's still trying to get off the opiates. And he chimed in last week when I talked about you, and he said, oh, shit, tell Dean, man, to be careful because that's exactly what happened to him. He had a motorcycle accident. They prescribed that shit to him, and he got hooked. So with all that said, Dean, tell us, what happened, and then talk to us about the meds, because you told me they did prescribe some to you. So where are you at with all that?
Well, long story short, motorcycle accident, but it was barely a motorcycle accident. The motorcycle didn't get in an accident. My leg got turned out. My foot got turned out, and then it was a complete rotation of the ankle, then the leg. I will tell you this, yes, I do have a script of
Percocet, you told me.
I have Oxy.
I thought you said perks.
No, I said I have Oxy. I was given a perk, but I have Oxy. I'm not saying this. I'm not advertising, guys. So,
no. Hey, we put our content warning
not for sale.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
He was like, damn, these go for how much, man? Yeah. No, I know Dean would never do that. But, so they sent you home with a script? Is that what happened?
For Oxy, yes.
And how many did they give you, just out of curiosity?
A dozen.
12.
Yes,
okay, because, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Dean, but I'm just, kind of jumping ahead here. It's like one of the things in the opioid epidemic and crisis is now that doctors, surgeons, dentists, whatever, are not as liberal as they used to be with the number or the amount of opioid medication they're prescribed. So a dozen, quite frankly, at least when I was using, that ain't that many, bro. So, tell us what happened then. You haven't really used many of them? Or
from the moment I took that last Percocet at the hospital, I've only been on 2 Advil every twice a day.
Okay, so you haven't actually used the oxys then?
No.
Wow, well, I got to ask you about that. So, because you know what? I've thought about that, y'all. When I was prescribed that shit, nobody talked to me about that. There was no medicine guy saying, now, Glenn, we're going to give you this pain medication, but we want you to be real careful because people get hooked. Nobody fucking said that to me. Did somebody talk to you about that, Dean? Like, hey, this shit can be real addicting, so be careful.
It was a lot of repeating questions. First, the big one is, are you allergic to anything? And I must have been asked that 20 times before I left the hospital. And I think they slipped in addiction one time.
Yeah, I was in the hospital actually last week myself, and they asked asked me if I was allergic to anything, like you said.
Right.
And of course, you know what I came back with.
I
said I'm allergic to narcotics. And they said, really? And I said, yeah, I break out in handcuffs every time I take them. And they all laughed. You know, of course, we know that joke, but they never heard it. They were like, that's so funny. And I'm like, well, it's not funny if I start taking them because then bad shit happens. Today, I'm an asset to this community. I am not a liability.
Yes, sir.
So, but they are definitely, from my experience, there is more education on addiction now. And it has to be with all of the stuff in the news and the podcasts.
I think they really probably could be a little bit more...
assertive with talking to you about it.
Talking to me about, we're about to give you some drugs. Now to go to that next part where the pain guy came in. He came in, and I actually told him, I was like, look, dude, I produce a podcast on opioids.
I have a unique perspective on this.
I am highly, acutely aware of some of the shit you might be going to give me.
Dean, I really appreciate you sharing your experience and story with us, man, because I think it's, certainly eye-opening to maybe some of our viewers and listeners who may have something like that happen to them at some point in time, that, you don't have to take this shit just because they prescribe it. We are capable of handling a lot more pain than sometimes I think, the medical profession, might like to think. And so, Dean, I want to compliment you, bro, on being acutely aware. And like you said, having a unique perspective, if for no other reason, because of this podcast, that, whoa, bro, I really don't want to take this shit unless I feel like I'm in that much pain and I can't handle it. So, yeah, man, my recommendation to you is keep them on the shelf or just fucking throw them away as soon as you think you don't need them anymore.
Dispose of them properly.
Yeah,
don't put them down the toilet, because apparently they get in the water.
That's true. That's true.
So when you put it in the toilet, somehow it gets in our drinking waters.
That's true, man. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, anyways, hey, Marla, we got to get you in on this conversation too, So I just got to say, I am so, and thank you again, Dean, for sharing. We'll talk with you more about it, but I want to thank you, a little extra special for being here tonight, because I happen to know, because you shared this with me, that you really went through a couple of hoops to get here tonight, because you are so active in the recovery community here in Central Florida. And I know you don't mind me saying this, you sponsor a lot of girls and help a lot of the women in the program. And tonight you had the honor of presenting someone with a medallion. Tell us about that.
5-year medallion.
Okay.
Very special. Her family came in from New England.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we went out to dinner, celebrated.
Did you have clam chowder?
Yeah, right.
We went for sushi.
Marvin from New England, yeah. So this is a girl you sponsor who lives here in Central Florida, just celebrated 5 years clean, had a big celebration where she had some family come in from the Northeast to be part of it and everything. And you presented her a medallion at what is my Central Florida home group. I'll just say it, y'all. It's a NA group called Still Working on It, or as we call it, SWOE. Yeah. And, this is probably a good time for me to just mention, because I told Marvin and Marla, they know they've seen this podcast before, but I always like to say it, that we are not affiliated with any 12-step program, nor would we ever claim to be a representative of NAAA, fucking A, whatever. It's also a huge part of my recovery and others who participate in this program. We can damn sure talk about it, and we do. And so, man, my home group here in Central Florida has always been SWOE since I first moved here over 30 years
we were talking
ago.
About this before the show, and I think it was, I gave you your first
you
medallion.
Oh, wow.
You didn't really know anybody. You don't think you had a sponsor. You said, hey, Marv, I know you, would you give me, and it was at What was the meeting? It was on Lake Avenue. It
was the Young and Free group. Young and Free.
And then you started doing the dances there. Yeah. You were the DJ, and we'd have like 300 people every month from all fellowships.
It was
badass.
Huge.
It was badass.
It was badass, wasn't it? It was, man. I just tell this story real quick. You know, I was telling Marvin earlier, I always call this one of my God shot stories. You know, we all have them God stories. When I moved to Orlando, you know, again, dating myself, it was 1991, the end of the year. There was no internet yet. So I literally got one of those apartment guide books at a 7-Eleven and kind of flipped the pages, stuck my finger in the middle of it, and it landed on a page. I said, okay, I guess I'll go look at that one. And so that's where I ended up moving. And it was between Christmas and New Year's Eve. I moved here that week. So New Year's Eve's coming up, and where I grew up in Detroit in the Midwest, they have big NAAA celebrations on New Year's Eve, big dances and the whole 9 yards. And, you know, so I said, well, I got to call the hotline, man. There's got to be something going on. It's fucking Orlando, you know? So I did. I called the hotline, and this guy on there, he's like, he probably still remembers this to this day. He's like, hey, what's up? And I said, hey, man, I'm new to the area, you know, and I'm in recovery. I'm just wondering if there's a recovery event of any sort going on New Year's Eve. And he said, oh yeah, man, there's this huge event. It's called the Young and Free event. It's in the city of Maitland. And I go, whoa, dude, I live in Maitland. That's where I moved. He goes, oh, well, that's not a big city. You'll have no trouble finding it. It's right off this road called 1792. I'm like, bro, I live right off of 1792. And he's like, oh, well, then you'll find it. It's right on the street called Lake Avenue. I'm like, bro, I live on Lake Avenue. And he's like, oh my God, I don't know if he was really believing me. And he goes, well, it's at this church called the Good Shepherd Church. And I'm like, my brother, I'm like, bro, hey,
that's across the
what's
street.
The name of that church across the street? He's like, the Good. I'm like, so I'm on the phone with this guy. I go, oh my God, you ain't gonna believe this. That's right across the street from where I moved. I could have ended up anywhere in Central Florida. I'm getting filled up, you know, because it just blows my mind the way everything evolved out of there, how I met you, Marvin. And you remember, like you said, we did them dances with like 300 people
every
in
month.
Recovery every month.
And it was everybody. It was NA, it was AA.
Yeah.
Man, it was so many people, and everybody came together. I called it now, what I call it now is like, I looked at it like it was the cooperation, not affiliation dance.
Yes.
Nobody cared about, it's AA, it's NA. Everybody just came together and
had
a great time.
Rebo's dances. The Rebo's dances.
Rebo's is
which
30 days clean.
Yeah.
Started going to those.
Yeah, the Rebos dances, the happy hour dances, all these different groups. And Marvin, you were telling me when we talked earlier today, just so y'all know, by the way, in addition to being a recovery advocate, Marvin is a very talented musician, and we're going to talk about that. So Marvin, Marla, you mentioned the Rebos Club. It's like a Alano Club or an Alano Club for my friends on the West Coast. They call it Alano over there. Yeah. But it's a club, and you guys are going to be playing a gig there. You're in a rock and roll band.
We are. It's actually next Saturday. It's their Christmas, their yearly Christmas gig, right? Sunday. I'm sorry.
Sunday.
Takes a village.
My party's
next
on
Sunday.
Saturday.
Don't come on Saturday. We won't. No. I'm honored, man. I've actually been out of music for a little while.
Okay.
But I met these guys, and actually somebody called me and said, hey, could you bring your band? I said, well, I don't have a band, but I'll see if I can put something together. It was actually a young lady in recovery. And she said, well, I got, let's see if you can get something together. And her father was a drummer, and it just all came together. We had a few practices, so we're going to have a jam next Sunday night. My brother, Leon Lilly.
Yeah.
You might have seen his, you posted his
song. I played a video, yes.
Great. That's got great, a lot of people have really chimed into that. Everybody's like, man, I love that song. I can't get it out of my head.
Love it. Yeah.
And he's going to be there. He's probably going to do that song live. Some other people are going to come and jam. It's going to be a great night.
Man, you making me feel homesick. I will be honest, y'all. I love Sacramento. I moved out there to be near my beautiful daughter. And there's a saying about Northern California. I never thought in a million years I'd live in Northern California. I always used to think if I ever moved to California, I'd move to Southern Cali, LA, San Diego area. But I've learned that there's, it's kind of like in Central Florida. Half the people I meet there, they ain't from there. They're from somewhere else, and they move there. And there's a saying about Northern Cali that it grows on you and before you know it, you fall in love and you're hooked for life. And that's kind of how I feel about it, man. It's like, I really love it. Y'all ever want to come out, man? Well, you got a spot, believe me. You know you're always welcome.
I also play softball in an organization called the Clean and Sober Softball Association. National Association. It's CSNSA. They have this huge organization, People in Recovery. They have the Worlds here every year, and they have them in California too.
Right.
And teams from all over the United States play, and we just played in Vieira actually last month.
Yeah.
And they're moving it back to California for a couple of years. So they said, "Are you going to bring a team?" I'm like, "I don't know, maybe."
Well, bro,
I've never been to California.
You always got a spot at my house. You know that, man. You might have to pull up a cot in the studio, but I got an extra room.
We don't sleep during that. We just play ball for 3 days straight. So.
I hear you. But anyways, y'all, you know, it's just, man, oh man, you know, where was I going with that? We were talking about, the music thing. Yeah. So yeah, a little bit homesick. I wish I could come to that event next week, but hey, man, I'll be there in spirit. And I think this is a great transition. Marla, I'm so glad you brought that up, because Marvin, you and I talked about already on the show how far back we go. You presented me with my medallion. That would have been my 6-year clean medallion, because I haven't talked about it on this specific show yet, y'all, but I first came into NA as a young man. I was just shy of 25. I started using as a young kid, like most people I knew at my age, at that age, you know, and I know you got clean young too, Marvin, but I started getting high at 11, 12 years old. By the time I was 13, I was smoking weed every single day, drinking, and God, all the other crazy shit that we did over them years that came the way, you know, mescaline pills, all that tab tea, all that crazy ass shit. Then the 80s hit and the coke came, and man, I went down fast. And I got clean just shy of 25, and I stayed clean for 16 years and 9 months, man. Nothing, not a drink, not a smoke, nothing. And then I had my first horrible relapse. You know, long story, it was drinking, smoking a little weed, lasted 5 years. I ended up back in rehab, you know, which was a good trip for me. And I came out of there, I stayed clean for 6 years. And then that's when I broke my ankle at a NA roller skating party of all things. I got talked into it up at fucking Cimarron Skateway. It was a swowy event, by the way. And I had no business out there with my old ass, but they talked me into it. I'm like, and I used to do the whole roller disco thing. I played hockey. I thought, how hard could it be, man? And I got out there and I actually did really good. I was skating good. All I had to do was step off of the rink at the end of the night, and you go from that smooth, slick, fast surface to carpet, and I lost my balance, broke my ankle, and like Dean was just talking about, I was in surgery the next day. They put 3 pins in, tossed me that bottle of Vicodins, and I was off to the races, man. And so, you know, anyways, though, you know, I guess where I was going with that is that, you know, back then, Marvin, I had 6 years clean, and you presented me my 6-year clean medallion, bro. And man, you've been, you know, so special to me ever since. You know, our friendship is, you know, like a lot of friendships. We've been close for a while. We go our separate ways, we come back around, and here we are, over 31 years later,
then Club
doing
Soda
a podcast.
Right after that.
Well, we're going to talk
about.
Have
you talked about Club Soda on this podcast?
We're going to tonight. I told you I had a couple surprises, and so we're going to jump ahead to those in a second. But yeah, we're going to talk about Club Soda tonight. But first, before we do, like I said, Marla, I'm so glad you brought up Rebos, because it reminded me to talk to Marvin about this group he's in now and the event they're going to do. But I want to talk about this for a minute. Dean, if you would, bring up that next slide of me standing outside the world. There I am at the NA World Services offices in Southern Cal.
Van Nuys,
right? Yeah, right outside of LA. Yep. And so there was the Southern California Convention of NA, the 44th annual one, happened in late August. So I went. And so I knew that the world was close by. Well, that had been on my bucket list. Like I said, y'all, I've been doing this NA thing. Even when I was using, I still went to fucking meetings. You know, thank God for our tradition. Whew, I'm trying not to get filled up, y'all, because thank God the only requirement for membership is a desire. Because even though I still was, you know, using, I still had the desire to get clean again. That old saying that once you got NA, going back out using ain't never the same, that certainly held true for me. I knew I was fucking up, but I was hooked, man. That shit had me. And so the point I'm making is, even though, you know, I had them relapses, man, especially that second relapse, I was still going to meetings, you know, and I was trying to keep it a secret, you know, thought I was tricking everybody. But as the old saying goes, the only one I was tricking was my damn self, you know. But anyway, with all that said, it's been on my bucket list ever since I first came in way back in fucking 1986 to go to the World, and I went. And so I go there, y'all, and come to find out, I had no idea. It is literally an NA museum. It's a museum. Now, it is the distribution center where all the literature, the medallions, the textbooks are distributed to groups and areas around the world. But brief, quick history for those of y'all that may be watching and listening that aren't familiar with NA and the 12-step programs. NA started in 1953, and it was adapted from the AA 12 steps. It started in 35. So the point I'm making is there's a long, rich history there from 1953 to 2023. So I go there not knowing what to expect, and they take me on this fucking tour of this building. And it's multi-floors. They got posters, banners from conventions around the world. I mean, literally around the world, y'all. I met this dude from Brazil who went on the tour with me. He's in the video of that show. If you want to go back and watch it, y'all, it's a podcast. I did
watch it. It was
super interesting. Yeah. And it's called an NA Story. And it was an edition of this podcast, I think about 4 or 5 ago. It was a good one, y'all. Go check it out. But so anyway, the reason I even tell that story is I'm walking through the fucking World Service Office. And I mean, it was so cool, man. We had such a great tour guide. Shout out Shirley. I know she likes watching now, maybe if she sees this. And so we had been walking around easily a good half hour. I saw a shit ton of different things. And we're walking down this one hall, and they got this huge poster. Yep. This slide right here is a collage of the NA World Convention in Orlando that took place in, I believe it was 2018.
Sounds about right.
And I'm like, well, damn, I might know some people on that collage, man. I was at that convention. I lived in Orlando for 30 years, so I walked closer. And Dean, if you want to show the next slide, who do I see in the World Service offices of Narcotics Anonymous on the wall? There he is, that boy Marvin Lilly, and your band that you were playing in, and you guys
keep coming back band.
Yeah, you performed at the NA World in Orlando.
Dude, it was like I was like, oh my God, you know, I am performing at the World Convention of Narcotics Anonymous.
Isn't that crazy?
And yeah, I blew my mind. I cried about it. I was emotional.
Oh, I would have too. God. Yeah, because I get it, man.
They paid me with a check from the World Service Office of Narcotics Anonymous. So I still have when I gave the check to I said, I gotta keep that check. I don't know what you need to do, but I need that check back. So I have it.
Wow. Well, hey, Marvin, I appreciate you sharing that, bro, because I know you're a real one, you know, like me, you know, and Marla. And so, you know, for normies like Dean, with all respect, Dean, you know, they might not get how intense and how powerful that kind of an experience is to be able to say you performed at the NA World Convention. But here's the kicker, though, y'all. So I see this, I take these pictures, I text them. And by the way, Marvin's brother, Leon, who is, you know, I know Leon's cool with me talking about it because I've talked to him on the phone. He's in this picture too, and y'all play because he's a talented musician and in recovery.
And a comedian. He does recovery comedy.
And a comedian. So I send you guys the pictures, and I'm like, bro, did you guys know that you are literally part of, you know, the history of the NA World Service Office and that you are on the wall of the office? And you were both like, dude, are you fucking kidding? You didn't even know.
No idea.
Yeah. So how cool is that? I mean, really cool. That, you know, that story you just told me about keeping the check, that makes me feel even cooler now that I was able to share with you that you guys are on the wall of the World Service Office.
Kind of full circle too. One of my first conventions was the World in Orlando in 89.
Yeah.
And my sister took me. I had like a year clean or something.
Right.
Like a year and a half, whatever it was.
But I went to that one, and that's when I decided to move to Orlando because I fell in love with the city then.
Yeah, she took me, And I didn't know what to expect. I thought there'd be a few people sitting around and maybe they'll have a meeting. There'll be a bigger coffee pot or something. Yeah. And I walked in and I was just like I was overwhelmed. Yeah. And I try to identify with the newcomers, especially in our recovery houses. Now I get the fact that you guys are scared. I get this is unfamiliar. Anything that's unfamiliar is scary. Hell, we anesthetized that so we didn't have to feel that shit, right? So I get that. And I tell them, I was right with you. My hands sweated for like 4 years. First 4 years I was clean. Even when I was in a meeting sharing, my hands were like, you know, I mean, it was scary. It was unfamiliar. But over time, I kept putting myself in those positions around people and challenging myself to do something different. And it started working, man. Yeah. It started working. Wow. I wasn't so afraid. I wasn't so scared of what people thought about me anymore. Yeah. You know, because it's none of my business what people think about me,
man,
right?
I say that out here all the time, bro. Isn't
you know what I mean?
Truth? So, that's program shit,
and too. I'm so passionate about that newcomer, you know, spreading their wings and watching them get clean and get their medallions, you know, and their family coming. And you and I have seen some tear-jerking moments that still work.
Oh my God!
When the daughter gets up or the son and says, "Thank you for saving my daddy."
Yes,
we thought he was going to die. You know, he thank you so much for helping and everybody's just crying.
Oh my God!
And I mean, it's just.
And Marla, I got to interject. I kind of feel like we're neglecting you over there. I swear to God, we're going to get you in this conversation.
Much going on,
before because we're going to talk with you in a second. Before we do, though, Marvin, let's show that next slide, Dean, because we talked about Leon, and I got a picture of Leon. This is Marvin's brother, Leon, who we featured on the podcast a few weeks ago. As you mentioned, he's got that great fucking tune and video out now called Some Days. And man, go back and watch the NA story edition of the podcast, and we play the whole video at the end of the show. But I talked to Leon about it and asked him to be on the podcast, and he's got a bad cold right now. Man,
I guess. A lot of people are so sick.
Yeah, right now, a lot of people. Yeah. But we're going to have him on down the road. We'll bring him on remotely when I'm in.
He will be doing some days. I'm almost positive live Sunday.
At the Rebos Club.
And possibly Saturday night at my Christmas party.
That's
Saturday night at the Christmas party. Yeah. Do you want to put your address out for all the people?
Yeah.
Annual Christmas party this Saturday
night. I got to tell you something. Since you brought it up, Marla, I'm so glad to hear you still do those recovery Christmas parties, because if you remember, when I lived up in like Northwest Orange County, I had this big-ass house up in Wekiva. And in fact, both of you guys would come to the parties and play music, because we would have live entertainment and shit. And Marvin, you would come, Leon would come, we'd have other people. And Marla, you would come, play the guitar, because by the way, y'all, Marla is a very talented musician as well. Plays guitar, sings, and has this drums and recovery program we're going to talk to her about. Yeah. But when I was going through my relapse, man, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to make a confession to y'all both live right here on the Dare Me podcast.
Were you high at the Christmas party, Glenn?
That last one I did, I was fucking using.
We
God.
Didn't know.
Yeah, you probably did, because I was disappearing, like dope fiends do, into the bedroom every 10 minutes, and it's like by that time, y'all, I was crushing and snorting that shit, not to get too, but man, and to this day, honest to God, just telling you guys that right now, I'm getting emotional, because when you relapse, man, one thing I learned, especially for a real one like me, I say it all the time, I'm a fucking NA guy, whether I like it or not, man. We have that old saying, we have visitors, we have members, and we have lifers. And I say, I'm a lifer whether I like it or not. I'm a grown-ass fucking man now. I'm going to be 62 in February, bro, and I've been doing this shit since I was 24, and even before that with my old man, because he was one of us. So where I'm going with that is, when I had that relapse, man, like I said earlier, you're fucking up. But I was still doing NA and recovery-related shit because I still had the desire. But you feel like you've betrayed everything your life has become about. You feel like you betrayed your friends, your program, yourself. And man, I'm serious, it's still hard, I'm still forgiving myself, man, because I can't believe that I allowed that to happen to me, and I'm still healing, y'all, obviously, But anyway, let me kind of get past the emotions there. I used to have some hell of a parties, and after that year, when I was using at the party, I quit doing them. And Marla, you kind of picked up the ball after that.
Me.
And, you've been doing annual Christmas parties here in Central Florida for the NA community, the recovery community, ever since. And I actually came to a few of them.
You called me and asked if you could pass the baton to me.
Yeah.
Because I had just bought that house right around the corner from you.
Yeah. And so man, it's just awesome. So anyway, with all that said, your annual Christmas party is coming up this Saturday, right?
I have a question.
Leon is actually DJing.
Are you doing drums in recovery at your Christmas party?
We are doing a drum
So
performance.
Drums, not drugs in recovery. Drums in recovery.
Drums in recovery. Hop on a plane. Hop on a train.
Yeah.
We're gonna drop the address. We're gonna pin a map and get you there. You just come on.
Well, hey man, the thing of it is, what you said, Marvin, is funny because we have listeners and viewers literally from around the world. Yeah, we're doing this live here in Orlando, my second home, away from home, and all that other stuff. But as we talked about earlier, man, we get these analytics from YouTube. Fucking blows my mind. Like I said earlier, this is episode 39, y'all. And for the month of November, at least just on YouTube, like I said, we're all over Facebook, X, Threads, all the things. Just YouTube. We had over 7,000 people tuned into this podcast, which just blows my mind. But the point I'm making is we get our second biggest audience is in the UK. Shout out to all our friends in the UK. We hear from people in Canada, Latin America. A couple of weeks ago, we had our boy Asaman from Saudi Arabia, who I had no idea. He's like, bro, you are such an inspiration to me. I just wanted you to know you're making a difference all the way on the other side of the world and the whole blah, blah. What? So I will tell you, you said something, Marvin. I'm so glad you said it. What other people think of me is none of my business. And the reason I bring that up is because sometimes I get real self-conscious about what we do with this podcast, or sometimes I'll second guess myself and I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, what have I done? Oh my God, what am I doing? Just put myself out there and have created all this work for myself, doing this every week and all that other shit. And then I get a call from a guy in Saudi Arabia telling me we're helping someone on the other side of the world. That boy Eric, shout out Eric in the chat room, who talks to us about how he's still trying to kick and that he tunes into the show because he says we're helping him. I can't stop now. That old saying, can't stop, won't stop, man. It's like we say in the opening to this show that Dean put together for us. If we can help even one person, then it's all worth it. So anyway, I appreciate you saying that. But yeah, where I'm going with that is, we do have people from all over other parts of not just around the country, other parts of the world tuning in. But if they want to, Marla, they can still come to your recovery Christmas party, right?
It's pretty open.
So Glenn,
go ahead, Dean.
Now that you've kind of introduced the audience a little bit here, we've had some comments.
Yeah, I see we got a busy chat room. Let's do it.
We've got. I'll put it on the screen. We've got Rockstar M5.
Okay, I'm not sure who that is, but hello to Rockstar M5. Thanks for joining the show. Who else we got in there?
We have Debbie Kudnick.
Oh, Debbie. Shout out Debbie. She's coming to us from Lake County up in Leesburg. I do happen to know who Debbie is. Shout out Debbie. Who else we got?
I'm going to probably mispronounce
wait. Let's read Debbie's comment. She says, young and free right across the street. LOL, because she knows that story. You met Debbie, Marvin.
Yeah. She'll probably be at Rebo's.
Yeah, you Sunday just night. Never know. So who else we got in there, Dean?
I'm going to mispronounce it, but Shalia Ratif.
Oh, no, that's my sponsor, Shay. She's coming to us live from Sacramento, California. So see what I mean, people? We got people from all over the country here.
She's sending out a hey, y'all.
Hey, Shay, glad you're on the show. I told Shay I want to have her on this podcast as a featured guest eventually. But, yeah, Shay's my sponsor. Who else we got?
Rockstar came back with another one. Looks like he's saying it's amazing just how big the program has gotten to be. It must be a 12-step program that saves.
It just might be humanity. A 12-step program that saves humanity. Yep. Yeah, you just never know, man. That's interesting because we often say that, as y'all know, that we're kind of lucky in recovery that we got a program, and with all respect, Dean, like we said, people like yourself that we call normies. y'all don't have a program to work on just everyday bullshit. You know, as my sponsor, Shay, if you're still watching, Shay, you remember this. She shared at a meeting I was at with her not long ago, and she was talking about family and friends and bullshit and drama. And she said, you know what? I got all these people in my life. I be working steps on them, and they don't even fucking know, you know? And it's like, I can relate to that, man, because I do. I have to work steps even when I'm just out on the road, man. So anyway, Marla, Christmas party next Saturday, and Marvin asked you a question about drums in recovery. So let's talk about that. And Dean, if we can, let's show this next slide. This is something you posted on social media a couple weeks ago, Marla, when we first talked about you on the podcast, that you were presented with an award from Orange County here in Central Florida for your Drums in Recovery program. So I remember when you were wanting to start this, and you were really kind of on the fence and a little nervous about doing it, and look at you now getting awards for it, man. I'm so I don't want to sound condescending, Marla. I'm so fucking proud of you, man. I'm proud to call you friend, and so happy about the success you're having. Tell us about the Drums in Recovery program.
Well, I don't even know where to begin, but I want to, since we were talking about Christmas, talk about your Christmas party.
Oh, okay.
When I used to come, I was doing music together.
Yes,
early
that's
childhood
right.
music is what I did. And I would come to your party, and you said, Marla, do some of your music. And I was like, really? I work with kids. You're like, just do something Christmassy. And so I brought out jingle bells and ribbons, and we just started dancing, and we did like a circle dance.
It was so much fun.
And you got people out of themselves to do that, because there was me. I was like, I don't really want to do this. This is kind of weird, but I did it anyway. It's like, you know.
We have done that. We're still doing that. Last year, I think we had over 40 people in that circle doing a circle dance. So it was just fun, and you DJ'd the whole event too.
Well, I would MC it, kind of, sort of.
It was great. And Marla Stevenson with music together. It was just made me feel.
Once a DJ, always a DJ.
Yeah, it's true.
I only had 11 months clean when I started that business. And because of that business, working with little kids and their families and seeing how music healed and helped people through grieving, and I was just seeing so many miracles happen, I looked into music therapy.
Right.
And because I was a convicted felon, I couldn't really get licensed in that field.
Right.
But I just would still keep reading about it, and I came across a picture with drums, hand drumming, and it said, drumming is good for your health. Yeah. It was the first thing I learned. And so I looked into that, and I took a course on health rhythms, and I started working with the elderly, but it just really wasn't taking off. So I just started, anybody who had a drum, I just started buying drums, talking to people with drums, and I met a lady in Tampa, and she had hundreds of drums, and she would go to like the airlines, and she would do huge team building events.
Right.
And I would go and just help her carry drums. And one day we're at lunch, and I had never mentioned about my being an addict, but one day I finally just told her, I'm in recovery. And she goes, oh, you're in recovery? She goes, no wonder you can't get the other programs off the ground. She goes, I have the perfect program for you. It's called Drum Beat. And it's literally for recovering people.
Well, Marla, if I may interject, and, I know you don't mind me asking you this, so, for our viewers and listeners, because we never really did ask you this, I know that you've been in recovery for a long time. And like I mentioned, I know you help a lot of people, especially the girls. You sponsor them and things to that nature. If you would, just kind of give us a brief, description of your journey and how long you've been clean and things to that nature, so people kind of understand,
Sure. Well, I got clean at Still Working on It, and it is still my home group, best home group in all of Orlando.
Yeah.
No, there's some good ones, but this is my group.
Yeah.
It's in Longwood.
It's in Longwood.
Yeah. Hey, man.
Still in Longwood.
It has a reputation, and you can't tell y'all, but we love that group. It's helped a lot of people over the years, including yours truly. Yep.
So I got clean in 2009. So I have 14 and a half years.
Wow, that is awesome. And again, Marla, I know just like myself, you say it for the cause, not necessarily the applause. But Dean, hey, thanks for that sounder. But that's so awesome, Marla. And I want to say, you truly are an inspiration to me as well. So,
this is really cool being here with my predecessors. Yeah. And Glenn, when you relapsed, you said it was really hard. You felt like you were betraying everybody, but it was sad for me too.
Yeah.
It was sad because you were a friend.
Yeah.
So, but when you came back and I seen you at a convention.
Yeah.
Wow. And I saw you still working on it.
Yeah.
Too. I was so happy. So,
oh man,
and
that
this is
fills
cool
me
too.
up.
This whole thing is so cool. That
Isn't
you're doing,
this?
This is right up your
Oh,
alley.
thank you.
You're a natural.
Well, thank you for saying that. I will say, before I started this podcast, I ran it by a couple of people. In fact, Debbie, hey, Debbie, if you're still watching, listen, I ran it by her. I said, I don't know, man, what do you think about doing this or not? And she was like, without skipping a beat, she was like, oh, my God, this is like a great idea. This is right up your alley, just kind of like what you said. So I appreciate you saying that. But so anyway, okay, well, I just thought we'd qualify you, as the saying goes, Marla. So she tells you about this drums and recovery program, and what happened from there?
So let's see. At about 11 months clean, I started the Music Together, first of all, with the encouragement of my sponsor, because I had all these musical instruments from a previous life.
Right.
And everyone's like, why aren't you doing anything? Like,
just kind of always been a music person.
At a call center. I worked at Bubbaloo's. I was just kind of like
drifting,
coasting and not really knowing what I was going to do.
Right.
But I had like guitars and stuff, and so because I was real active at still working on it, people would see and ask and inquire. And when a lady in Oviedo was selling her business, Music Together, my sponsor was like, you need to get in on that. And I was like, no, I can't. But she's like, yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
So I did.
You will.
So the music started. And then I also got involved in another program at my church, another recovery program. So I had this little group of ladies, and it was all different recovery, not just drugs or alcohol.
Right.
And so I had this group of ladies. I was there for a few years, so they knew my whole story, everything starting the Music Together. One of the ladies came to my class with her grandson, and he could not speak. He couldn't even make a sound.
Right.
And after one semester in my class,
you told me the story.
He was singing, and he started talking, and the doctor said it was a miracle. And so she started paying for scholarships for people, single moms, to bring their kids to my classes. And another lady, when I started the drumming for the elderly, nobody really wanted to pay me to come in to do.
Right.
So I was just doing what I could do. And the lady said, if you start a nonprofit, the government, this is such an awesome program, the government will help you. They will want you to serve these people, this program. And she said, and I know how to do that, and I will help you.
Wow.
And she literally, a lady from my recovery group, helped me start the nonprofit Drums in Recovery.
Yeah.
And it was to literally present the newer program I found that was for recovering addicts, because I went to that training and it changed my life.
Right.
They had one exercise. Well, first of all, it was 15 of us in the training, and they were all drummers, professional. And I had never played a drum before.
Right.
And I was the only recovering addict. And they had an exercise, it was called Taking a Risk.
Okay.
So they said, we're all going to play this basic foundational rhythm, and when you want to play your solo, you just give the signal and you go. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to play a solo. I don't even know how to play a drum.
Kind of like what Marvin was saying, getting out of your comfort zone, like at the party. So
everybody did it, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do it, right? And so the day ended. We went back to our rooms and everything. I was like, man, I didn't do it. I regretted not doing it. And the next day, we all had to lead our own exercise, and somebody chose that one, and they did it, and they said, if you don't take a risk in life, you never know what you could accomplish.
Isn't that the truth?
And he said, so does anybody want to take a risk and do a solo. And I gave the signal, right? I'll show you. This is a solo. This is the signal, right?
Right,
the signal over the drum. And everybody rooted me on, cheered me on.
Wow.
And I just played that drum. And then I stopped, and they all just, yeah, Marla, you did it.
Wow.
And I...
Picture up.
Well, yeah, this is...
So empowered. I was like, I can do anything.
Well, Marla...
a drum solo in front of... drummers.
Oh my God, that is such a powerful story. I can't thank you enough for sharing that with us. And I got to tell you, I do remember you telling me the story once before about the little boy. That is truly a testament to the power of music. And by the way, for those of you that are regular viewers and listeners to the podcast, I didn't really talk about it a lot tonight, but the name of this program, Dare Me, kind of was an idea I came up with. First of all, I was like, dare me to do this. Dare me to come out about being an addict and, fuck the stigma and all that stuff, because even though I've been active in the recovery community for years, as you guys know, I was kind of a business media kind of guy in Orlando. I kind of always paid my NA and recovery shit a little bit closer to the chest in the business world because of the whole stigma thing. And when I came out in this podcast, it was like, dare me to do it. Well, then we took the letters in this name, Dare Me, and we made these acronyms, these little hashtags of, well, what does that stand for? Drugs, addiction, recovery, enlightenment, music, and exercise. All the things that are most important to me in my life. And music, man, we talk a lot on this show about music. We've had a lot of guests on the show who are talented artists and things to that nature. So you guys, man, you bring both components to the table, being, involved in recovery and the whole music thing and everything. So I think it's awesome. And so that story you told, Marla, I think speaks volumes to, again, us having this whole topic of music on this show as part of recovery, because it's certainly been, an intricate part of my recovery. You mentioned, Marvin, I've been a DJ for years, music guy. As you know, I sing and produce and do auto-tune music now, which I want to talk to you about, bro, because you made a comment on one of my Petty covers that made me feel so fucking good. Well, we'll talk about that in a second, man. So anyway, Marla, thank you for sharing that story, because music therapy is so powerful, not just for little kids like what you talked about, but for those of us healing, not just from addiction to drugs and alcohol, like you mentioned. I'm glad you said that, because people are recovering from a lot of other things too that may be watching or listening to this podcast that music can be so therapeutic for.
While I'm thinking about it, the trickle-down effect from what you've done.
Yeah.
I mean, we have ladies that live in our house right now that I didn't even know were in your drum circle until they said, I'm going to Marla. He goes, Marla? They're like, yeah, I'm going to hang out with Marla and do drum. I said, I didn't even know that you were in her drum circle.
Well,
so,
I used to bring drums and recovery into the rehabs.
Well, I know that, but but it's touched the women in our houses too, because we have two women's houses
in your recovery houses,
and 3 men's houses, and of course,
So we have an after program at my house that we meet every week. So if you leave a program, you leave the jail, you have you're called a veteran drummer now.
Right. Well, speaking of veterans, Marla, you told me a couple of weeks ago. Now, let me, because you're doing the veterans now, but let's talk about this picture for a moment that Dean's got up on the screen. What's going on here?
That's the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah,
we do after school programs too.
Okay, now Dean, let's bring up that next slide, because here you're working with a bunch of little kids, and you talked about the one little kid. What's going on here?
This is music and wellness. And wellness.
And it starts at such an early age, but then let's jump forward, like I mentioned, when, we were talking about, these different groups you work with just a moment ago. Now you're even working with veterans on, like veterans that may be struggling with PTSD and shit like that. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Well, we're in the addictions ward.
Okay. Working with veterans who are back from being deployed and struggling with some mental challenges.
And drug addiction.
And drug addiction.
Yeah, it's recovery.
Wow.
So we're doing a recovery program.
So
That's
just
amazing.
Man, it is so amazing. And I was so blown away when I saw you posted this. I said, "Oh man, I got to get Marla on the program because they recognize the value of the program that you're orchestrating for music therapy."
And
Congratulations.
it's a miracle too that I'm working with children because I've had to work really hard to get exemptions to
be around children.
Florida Department, for real. Children and families.
Lost dreams awaken and new possibilities arise.
Yeah, say that, bro. That's a program saying for those of you that don't know.
I am cleared.
Well, Marla, thank you so much for sharing that all with us. And, it's just such a powerful story. And, oh, my God. So indulge me for a moment, if you would, because I touched on this with you, Marvin. So, like you said, man, I've been a DJ. I've been a music guy my whole life. I know everybody loves music, so I'm not saying I'm any better or worse than anybody else. I'm not a music snob, but yeah, man, I've been involved in music my whole life. I've been a DJ my whole life. And I've dabbled with different instruments from time to time. I can play a little, right now I'm fucking with the uke, just practicing chords and stuff, and having fun, little harmonica, you know what I mean? Mick Jagger put out some of his own harmonicas. I bought 2 of them, But anyways, so when I got clean, bro, I met this guy who's been a guest on this podcast a few times, Shebang. Shout out Shebang if you watch it, man. And him and his brother start talking to me about auto-tune. And his brother, they're both talented artists, but his one brother, Shu, shout out Shu from Rarehearted. We have had them on the show too. They talked me into like going and laying down some tracks in auto-tune, and they tuned them and produced them, and they came out pretty good. I'm like, because we were just like in the car on the way to a meeting, and he's spitting, freestyling and shit. Come on, Glenn, jump in there. We're just having fun and shit. And he's like, bro, my brother, man, he fucks with auto-tune and stuff. Let's go over and have some fun. I was hooked, man. That's it. I was hooked. So I got a whole studio set up at the crib and all that stuff. And I've been doing it now for a couple of years. And, I've been slacking a little bit lately, but I've recorded a lot of songs. I love doing covers. And, you know how it is, man. You got to pick the right songs for your voice and stuff. And so anyway, I covered some Tom Petty shit, and, I tuned it up a little bit. They got all these different effects and plugins, they call them, you can put on there, and I put one out, Tom Petty, I Need to Know. You may not even remember this, Marvin, but I posted it. And
I commented on it.
Yeah, I had a shit ton of people listen to it, and you commented. This is probably, I don't know, a year and a half ago or whatever it was, and Marvin posted, wow, bro, you were up there doing the DJ and MC the whole time, and you should have been singing. And, oh, my God, coming from a guy like you, man, who's so talented, that made me feel so good, man. So I
you were the
appreciate
DJ at Club Soda.
Okay.
In 1990,
whatever it was,
whatever it was, and I was singing in the band at Club Soda.
Well,
scared to death, by the way.
Since you brought up Club Soda, I told you before the podcast today that we had a couple little surprises, and we're going to do it right now. This was a club here in the Central Florida area for our viewers and listeners that we had such a ball at, man. And we jumped around.
Is a date on there?
I don't know. Is there a date on that one, Dean? I can't quite tell.
It's like a concert poster.
Yeah. It was a flyer that we had out, but the guy who was running the joint at the time, this guy Dan, he used to put these flyers out all about the events we do there, and this was one that I just happened to have stuck away in one of my junk drawers, and I go, oh my God, I still got this. And so I had to show it on the program today because we had this club, and Marvin, not to get into money and business, but you and I both invested a little money into this place. And
more time than anything. Service work.
Yeah, and it was around for, God, I mean, it had been around 5-6 years at least, right? Yeah. And we went to a couple different locations, and this was a flyer I found. But here's the real surprise, Marvin. I bet you don't remember this. You might remember that flyer, but Dean, we have a video. And when you came in, Marvin, I said, I don't know if you remember, Marvin, but you and Dean have met before. And you kind of had this look on your face like, vaguely.
Maybe.
Well, I'll tell you before we do it, we filmed, you may remember, a television commercial for Club Soda. You and your band were playing that night. We set it all up ahead of time.
It wasn't my band.
And, well, you were singing.
That's why I got that's a whole other story.
The band you were in, you know, there's
Bruce
always
Blevins'
personalities
band.
in
I was
the
just
band.
the singer sometimes.
Shout out Bruce. If
Bruce.
you see it. We love you, bro.
Bruce. Bruce will probably be up there next Sunday night, too.
Well,
Talented guitarist and musician, by the way.
Yes, he is.
Very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now we may play this twice because it goes fast. It's a 30-second commercial, so you really got to watch close. And there are probably going to be a couple of people in there you'll recognize that maybe you haven't even seen in years. So yeah, Dean, let's plan on playing it twice. But I found this in the archives. I'm not even sure what year this is from, but it's probably, like you said, right around the mid to late 90s.
10 years clean.
Yeah.
So it was 98.
Okay, well, let's give it a look and a listen. You ready to play that one, Dean? Let's go ahead.
Tired of the drinking crowd? Well, try Club Soda Central, Orlando's drug and alcohol-free nightclub for adults. That's right, none of that stuff here, man. We live the real life, and you better believe we love to party. We're dancing clean and sober to live bands and our house DJ at Club Soda Central, Orlando's drug and alcohol-free nightclub for the over 18 crowd. Call 521-8511. Club Soda Central, Orlando's drug and alcohol-free nightclub for the over 18 crowd. 521-8511. Call 521-8511. Massage was never like this.
Wow. Did I just blow your mind or what?
Oh, my gosh.
Now, if that was 98, bro, we're talking like 25 years ago. We're dating ourselves. But
25. Yeah, it's 25, 26 years ago.
How cool is that, though, man? So, yeah, y'all, and for those in the Central Florida area, for the rest of y'all, please indulge us for 1 second. Like I said, we moved that club around to 3 different locations over the years. Yeah. That particular location, believe it or not, was this huge nightclub that used to be called the Visage over on OBT near Americana or whatever. And, I mean, that was a heavy, drug using club, back in the ecstasy days and all that. And a lot of big groups played there, like fucking 9 Inch Nails played there, and Jane's Addiction, and groups like that from that era. I
was on that same stage.
And you were on the same stage as them. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll never forget when we moved into that building, I thought, oh my God, this is so fucking bizarre to go from Visage to this drug-free club.
You remember it was Sober Circuit first in South Florida.
Sober Circuit.
The guy moved it up here and moved it to 1792 and 436.
That's right.
For a brief period of time.
Yep.
And he really promoted it a lot.
Yes.
And it didn't take off.
Yep.
It was too much like a bar. Remember, they had the frosty mugs.
Yes. I remember.
Everybody's like, man, I feel like I'm at the bar. It's too much. And then Dan got it and moved it over to.
I'm glad you brought that up because I used to get so frustrated about that back then when the old timers would talk shit like that, and I'd say, bro, it ain't no fucking different than going to Dunkin' Donuts and sitting at the counter and drinking a frosty mug of root beer there. Why you got to compare it to a bar? Young people like to go out and do shit. With all respect, to our old timers, but it's like, bro, not everybody goes home and sits on the fucking couch and gets fat watching fucking TV. Young people like to go out and mingle. I still don't
go home and sit on the couch
Say
and get
that, man. And, I do think, like I often say on this podcast, man, it's like, it's 2023, not 1953. And I do think that we have become much more, assertive. Younger people are much more, the whole recover out loud philosophy, like what we're doing with this podcast and all that. So, there's a lot more stuff like that going on. But man, we used to get some pushback with Club Soda back in them days from some of the hardcores, the purists who used to say, well, it's just like a bar. But you know what, man? That fucking place kept me clean for years.
Story, my home group back then was a New Wave group of narcotics.
Yeah, I remember,
it was on the corner of Michigan and Nashville Street. That's where I got clean. It's where I went to the halfway house, and I made that my home group for years. And I decided, we decided as a group, there was enough of us that voted, we were going to have a dance every month at Club Soda.
Yes, I remember.
But I remember when I took that flyer to area, People lost their freaking mind.
Yeah.
And they lost their mind. And I'm like, listen, y'all been telling me I need to have fun in recovery. There ain't no dope here. This is we're paying for the place. It's not like we're promoting them. We're paying to go there every month. And we did it for the longest time, man. And so many people came. Yeah. Aldo and those guys back then, man. Aldo was always the one out there showing everybody how to dance with his what was her name? His girlfriend.
Jeannie. Jeannie, man. Yeah, shout out Aldo and Jeannie.
You guys are out there, man. So I don't know where they're at now.
Well, you know who I saw in the video from the back was Andy. Did you notice that was Andy? And he's wearing a Club Soda shirt.
Andy Y?
We had a softball team.
Andy.
Oh, God, I forget his last name, but he was your boy.
Giannis 80s.
Yeah.
He lives across the street from me in a travel trailer on Lonnie's property.
Shout out, Andy. Okay, we got to play it again because, like I said, it went by fast. Yeah. And for all of y'all, just indulge us here, man. We're reminiscing. And it's actually a pretty cool spot, for anybody else around the country, other parts of the world, man. This is a good example of how you can make this kind of shit happen, man, because we kept that thing going for years. God, I tell you what, Marvin, I'm sitting here thinking all the marriages that grew out of Club Soda, all the divorces that grew out of all the kids that were born.
I just got to say, I'm already here.
Yeah.
I met Debbie at Club Soda.
Okay.
You remember that?
Yes, of course I do.
And we were together for 21 years.
Wow. It just goes to show, man. And, there were people I know because I was a DJ. I was a wedding DJ too, not just in the clubs. There were so many people that I DJ'd their weddings who met at Club Soda. A lot of whom are still married because we're friends on social media. So and still living clean. Still living clean. Yeah, man, with all respect to the old timers and the purists, but I used to call them the recovery Nazis. Like, man, that's just like a bar. Dude, get with the program. Young people need a place to go that's fun, that you don't have to worry about the temptation of drinking and drugs.
Maybe we should bring it back.
I know, maybe we should. You never know what you might manifest,
now. We got a little money, a little knowledge.
We learned from the mistakes because there were a lot of mistakes made there. I'll grant that, but okay. So anyway, let's watch it again and look for Andy and anybody else you might recognize. Dean, let's play that spot one more time. It's quick, 30 seconds.
Tired of the drinking crowd? Well, try Club Soda Central, Orlando's drug and alcohol-free nightclub for adults. That's right, none of that stuff here, man. We live the real life, and you better believe we love to party. We're dancing clean and sober to live bands and our house DJ at Club Soda Central, Orlando's drug and alcohol-free nightclub for the over 18 crowd. Call 521-8511. Club Soda Central, Orlando's drug and alcohol-free nightclub for the over 18 crowd. 521-8511. Call 521-8511. This Saj was never like this.
Hey, so Marvin, I'm just gonna say it because I know I don't care.
Can you send me that somehow?
Oh, absolutely. But I recognized a couple people. You mentioned your ex. I'm gonna mention mine. I seen Shelly in there. You could see her from the back walking in. I was married to her for 10 years. Shout out Shelly. She messaged me today. I'm still friends with both of my ex-wives. Believe it or not, I talk about it on this podcast all the time. I mean, it wasn't always that way, but we're friends now and we support each other. And we try to remember the good times. People change and grow and evolve. But anyway, she was in there, and then there was a girl, was it Alyssa, that you used to date or something? I saw her from the back. I'm sorry.
Was she the one walking in right
there?
Yeah,
that was her. Yeah.
Why didn't you bring that up? Oh,
yeah. That's actually my daughter's name, believe it or not.
No. I forgot all about her. Now my heart's broke all over again.
I'm sorry, bro, but hey, that's 25 years ago, man. But anyway, and there were other people in there I recognized too. And you mentioned Marla. Oh my God, look at the records. But yeah, that was when we spun vinyl and shit, man. Now everything's all digital. But oh my God, did we have fun in that place, didn't we? We had so much fun.
And a lot of people found recovery.
Yes.
And they really, really did. And they're still around. They're still clean.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, for sure.
Yep. And, and I'll also say, man, we had our nights at the club and everything, and we would go, usually till like 1 a.m. or whatever. And I ain't endorsing gambling or anything like that, y'all. I'll also say, if you remember, bro, we had a certain group of people that would stick around after everyone left, and we'd have card games and sit around and, it wasn't no like big time on gambling like when everybody went broke. And, usually it was like somebody might win $100 or two and then next week give it back and we just
there was no illegal casino activities taking place.
Yeah, no illegal.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But we just kind of passed it around from week to week. But the point I'm making is for those of us that, especially like myself, Marvin, I know for most music people, we kind of come from that nightclub atmosphere. We become kind of night people. And so it was hanging out after the club closed, and that shit helped keep me clean, man. It really did.
Another caveat to this, if you remember, when Dan got the club that were on Silver Star that was Visage, the Orange County was like ecstatic that there was going to be a sober nightclub at this place where there were shootings there. I think there was a couple people killed there. Yeah. They were always there arresting people. Yeah. So they were really happy.
Now I don't mean to interrupt you. That Visage was on OBT at Americana. There was also a different location at Silver Star and Pine Hills. Yep.
So I'm talking about Visage, where Visage was at. Was. They had so much trouble there.
They did.
And then I think somebody even did a story
That's
on it
why
on the
it closed
news
down. Yeah.
Because they closed it down, and then when they were all about opening it up and opening this new sober nightclub where people that were getting clean could go and have fun in recovery and not get shot or not shoot up. So.
Well, Marla, I can't help but notice you're kind of listening to this going, well, damn, I wasn't even clean back then. I wish I got to
start another one.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I would stay up
can
that
have
late
drum and recovery night. We use special workers. That's why we get special workers to take care of all that.
Well, you know what? And, of course, we had that other location up in Castleberry, and, man, we used to do stuff like, karaoke nights, bingo nights. We served food and, it was just, it was a huge part of my recovery.
Night was a big night.
Yeah. Well, I can't thank you guys enough for indulging me on that little trip down memory lane. But, hey, it's all recovery oriented, man. And that whole thing, So, anyways, if y'all would, I'd really like you to stay with me for the rest of the program because we also talk about, kind of the opioid crisis in the news a little bit. We're just going to touch on a couple stories, and then we're going to do a couple quick shout outs, and then we end the show with a little humor at the end. But I'd love it if you guys stuck with me through that, and we'll talk about it a little bit. But before we do, and Marla, I want to thank you again for walking us through that story about drums and recovery. We got to spend a little time with you, Marvin, talking about mind, body, and soul recovery houses. And Dean, if you could bring that slide back up, it was near the top of the show, the mind, body, and soul recovery houses, because there's a phone number on there too. And I'd like for our viewers and listeners to be able to see this. And by the way, this is good information, not just for those watching and listening live, but anyone who may come across the recorded version. There you go. Thank you so much, Dean. Talk to us about your journey with this and how that's going.
So Marvin. So like about 14 years ago, I was at a kind of a change in my life or whatever, if you will, and one of our friends in recovery, Joanne Stone.
Yes, I know Joanne, counselor, long-time friend of mine. Yeah.
Called me.
Shout out Joanne, by the way. Yeah.
She's I
got to tell you, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I used to always, when we were talking about Young and Free and Club Soda, as you know, Joanne has a couple sisters, and, they're all recovery, and they'd show up at these events, and I've known them a long time.
Every time,
Every time I'd see them walk in the door, I would get on the mic and yell, the party girls are here, and they always dug it, and I'd play that old tune. Remember that tune, Meeting in the Ladies' Room? And they always dug that, so, hey, I had to interject.
There's a party in the ladies' room.
That one, that's the one. No, there's a meeting in the ladies' room.
Our first drum beat program was at Joanne Stone's transitional house for women.
Wow. Well, see,
our very first.
There you go. We got to get Joanne on the podcast.
By
the way, Joanne. You know what? Speaking of Joanne, I bumped into her. I think the last time I saw her was at a FRCNA convention, which stands for...
She goes to every FRCNA.
Yeah, every one. And for those that are watching or listening who don't know, FRCNA stands for Florida Regional Convention of Narcotics Anonymous. So we just can't take them letters, and over the years, people just say
Fraternity for Recovering Caffeine and Nicotine Addicts.
Yeah, yes, that's true. Or, okay, since, we put that content warning on the front end of this program, I'm just going to say it. There's also people that call it FUCNA because a lot of people,
working on it.
Yeah, a lot of people hook up at that convention. Oh, we have fun in recovery, y'all. Don't think it's boring, because it ain't, but I know that's pretty crude, but it is what it is. We're all real ones out here.
Yeah, not everybody goes there for that.
Anyways, though, I bumped into Joanne when I had probably April, May, June, July, about 4 months clean. And I came out of a meditation workshop that I shared on, and I had already been thinking about doing a podcast if I could stay clean, because you know how it is, man. When you got a few 3-4 months, you kind of feel like, I'm doing this, I'm making it. But you still ain't sure, like, if you're really going to stay clean. Like now, man, I'm like, I ain't fucking getting high. You know what I mean? That's the furthest thing from my mind. I mean, I know we all just got a day at a time, but, that's the farthest thing from my mind. At 3-4 months clean, I still felt like this could fucking go either way, man. I don't know.
Sure.
But I remember telling Joanne at that convention, I go, I come out of this meditation workshop where I shared, and this girl who I don't know, I wouldn't know if she was sitting next to me, never seen her before, probably never see her again. She comes up to me and she goes, wow, man, I really appreciate what you shared in there. You ever think about doing a podcast? And I had already been thinking about it, and not to get too mystical and all that shit.
Spoke it into existence.
Yeah, but I was like, oh my God. And so I saw Joanne and I go, wow, Joanne, I'm really thinking about doing a podcast. And I remember her kind of giving me the side eye at the time, like, bitch, you ain't even been clean a few months again. You talk about, you know how it is sometimes when we first get clean, we think we're going to save the world and all that other shit. But come to find out, we've been doing this since March. So I guess it was like a year and a half later, I started this podcast. And now here we are, 39 episodes in, talking about Joanne. So shout out Joanne. But anyway, with all that said, Marvin, I didn't mean to get us sidetracked there. I really do want to do a deep dive into what you're doing, because you're saving lives, bro. Talk to us about your recovery
we're
houses.
saving lives doing this. We save lives when we sponsor women and men. We save lives when we share at a meeting. We save lives when we're not afraid to speak out loud about, recovery work.
Say that.
People ain't going to know if it works if you don't tell them.
Yes.
So the whole anonymity thing for me, I don't care. But personally, I don't give a shit. I'll go on Channel 9, Channel 6, I don't give a damn. But
appreciate
that's me,
that,
right?
bro. No, I
and you know that, right?
Yes. Dare me. Yeah.
But no, so I was at kind of a change, a point in my life where I didn't know what was going to happen. The relationship was kind of going south, and Joanne reached out to me. She goes, "Hey, I've got this recovery house in Altamont Springs, and I want to rent the house next door and start another recovery house. Would you like to come and live at the house and run it?" Right. And I'm like, "What?" Wow. I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
So I'm like,
and this was how long ago?
13 years ago.
Okay.
So I was, I had 23 years clean.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
23 years clean at that time. So I'm like, no, I don't want to go live in a recovery house with a bunch of newcomers. And deal with all that. Yeah. But I called my sponsor. Mm-hmm. Rich P. Shout out to Rich P. He may be on here listening. I sent the link to him.
Right. Yeah, we got a busy chat room. We'll catch up on in a little bit, by the way.
He said, Marvin, well, what do you think? Because that's what he always does. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Let's do a pro and con list on that.
Yeah.
Might be good for you, might not. Let's talk about that. So, he ghost whisper. How does he say? Anyway, he kind of allowed me to talk myself into this. And long story short, I decided to do it. And I moved into a men's recovery house. I had a bedroom. I had my dog, Sarge. I miss Sarge so much.
Oh, yeah.
He used to go to the gigs with us. And
I remember,
lay on stage, my shepherd, and everybody loved Sarge. He was Sarge the recovery dog. So,
I get it, bro.
And me and him, we went in and we decided to manage a recovery house. And then she decided she wanted to open a women's house next door. And I'm like, that's not a good idea.
Next door.
Really not a good idea to open a women's recovery house next to a men's recovery house. Probably not a good idea. No, I want to do this. We need to save women. I'm like, I agree, we do. So I'm managing a men and women's house. And let me just tell you, there was some stories I can't really tell on here. Crazy.
I get it, man. I get it.
Yeah, so... But, there are still people clean from those houses for sure today.
Yeah.
You started doing your drums, and you sponsor some of them. You started doing your drums in recovery. I owned a house in downtown Orlando with my friend Lonnie Mead, which I got clean with.
Shout out Lonnie. We're on social media.
36 years ago in Mako here in Orlando, we got clean together. Yeah. And I said, we were so busy, we used it as an overflow. So I put a guy over there in the house as the houseman and started using that house as an overflow. Right. And then we started talking like, hey man, we just need to do this. So long story short, we started buying properties, one at a time, like one a year. And then I left Stepping Stones, and we started Mind, Body, and Soul Recovery. Right. That name came from John Foster, a prominent attorney in Central Florida. His son overdosed. He was a great kid. Everybody loved Little John so much. He was just he would just have this infectious personality that
I can still see him. Like, we were talking about Swoey. I can still see him there.
Beautiful wife, and we used to have card games at his house, and we'd go to conventions. Vaping started. And he was the vape seller, and turning on everybody on the vapes. He's like, hey man, I got vapes, man. I'm like, what is that? Let me try it. And anyway, long story short,
I remember when he passed.
He overdosed. Got dropped off at the emergency room. Just pushed out the door of a car, and somebody left him, and he died. So John came up with that name, Mind, Body, and Soul. Yeah. He talks about recovery being the beast, and he also has videos online talking about losing his son and how gut-wrenching it was, and that, choose recovery. Yes. Choose life. Addiction is the beast.
Yes.
And you need to fight the beast. So that's how that started, and we just started buying a house a year. We now have 3 men's houses and 2 women's houses. Wow. And good news is I have we're fixing to break ground on a brand new house in between the 2 women's houses.
Congratulations, Marvin.
2,000 feet square foot brand new women's house that we'll probably use as like a 3/4 or transition for the women, because after they stay for a year or year and a half, they clean up the wreckage, they build some credit, they pay off some debt, they get their kids back in their life. Maybe they found a relationship, maybe not, whatever. Or maybe they need that next step, and they still don't have credit. They still can't go out and rent a place because of their felonies, because of their past.
Yeah.
There needs to be more places. So that's our initial idea. What we would probably use that for is to put some of those ladies in there that have some time, give them some more freedom, let them take the next step in their recovery. So I'm passionate about it. And, we've made some mistakes. We've made some mistakes for sure, but we've learned from them. Yeah. And there are so many people. I mean, I go to meetings, I look around, and I see I'll see all these people in the rooms that were a product of our houses, and I'm like, sometimes I start crying, man. It just gets
I get
me,
it, man.
Or they're picking up medallions. I went to a meeting a couple weeks ago, and three of our clients were getting medallions or chips, and I'm like, wow. I mean, I know why we're doing this, right?
Yeah.
So we have great people behind the scenes. We have housemen and house mom that in long-term recovery in their own apartments that live on property. We're FAR accredited, so we're legit. There are some good houses in Central Florida, and there are some bad houses.
Well, you know what? Florida. Let me interject, Marvin. I'm so glad you brought that up, bro, because we did a podcast a while back, talking about our boy who passed away. I went to an event up in Detroit when I was up there visiting about 6 months ago, and there's a foundation called the Jamie Daniels Foundation. Same type of thing. This guy, Ken Daniels, he's like the announcer for the Detroit Red Wings hockey team. His young son, who was right around the same age, young guy, mid-20s, whatever, was struggling with addiction, trying to get clean, and, had been in rehab and went down to, South Florida, man, down in that recovery house area. But there is this area, I'll think of the name, Delray area,
Beach.
Where all these recovery centers are, so-called, but you touched on it just briefly. Not all of them are legit. There's some fucked up ones out there that are all about the money, and there's even documentaries I've seen like on Prime and Netflix all about how, they're scamming people and setting them up for relapse so they can rebuild the insurance and all that. And so if you go back and look at one of our previous episodes, or just look them up on the internet, the Jamie Daniels Foundation, read that whole story about what happened with Jamie Daniels and his family. It'll shed a little more light on that topic for you. But all the more reason, Marvin, I can't thank you enough for agreeing to be on this show today to talk about what you're doing, because, folks, if you're a person struggling with addiction, you're watching or listening to us live, you come across the recorded version, and you're looking for a legit recovery house living arrangement. I hope y'all know me well enough. I wouldn't bring no bullshit on this program. Our friend Marvin and what he's doing is legit. So thank you again, Marvin, for bringing up that there are some out there. You got to really mind your P's and Q's. Be careful of. What I'll recommend, folks, is do your research, man. Ask people. Read about them. Don't just jump at the gun, because you know how it is, man. When somebody's like finally hit that rock bottom and they're ready to get help, or they've reached out for help, and maybe a family member, a parent is ready to help them, they'll jump at the first thing, and it's almost like a knee jerk, and they go into some of these facilities that ain't legit. Well, so do your research. But
on that note, I was going to say one more thing on that note. So a few years back, the Department of Children and Families handed down a law that counselors in the state of Florida are not allowed to recommend clients to go to a recovery house unless it's FAR accredited. There's four different levels of FAR accreditation, from IOP all the way down to a 3/4 house, basically. So a counselor can't say, Marla, call this place unless it's FAR accredited.
Right.
You know, they're not allowed to tell a client to call Joe's Sober House on the beach. And don't get me wrong, there are good independently owned sober houses.
Right.
There are. But if you're not FAR accredited, the counselor is not allowed by law to recommend that house to anybody any longer because of some of the stuff that was going on. They were telling people, go get high, relapse, we're going to put you back in treatment. They were getting kickbacks. They were making buku money, recycling the addict, going out and copping dope for him and all kinds of shit like that.
Setting people up for relapse.
Correct, 100%.
But like I said, what Marvin is doing with Mind, Body, and Soul recovery houses are legit. So let's talk about it a little bit, bro, because we got the phone number up here. Right. And I know how it goes. Sometimes, you ain't got no beds available, but sometimes you do. Is there a list?
Not everybody that calls qualifies. First of all, for our program, you got to have 30 days clean.
Right.
You can't be on Suboxone or methadone. That's just our program. There are others that take you. You have to be able to pay rent upon arrival. So we're not a nonprofit, and I tell people that from the get. If I can't place them, I try to help them. I'll send them to Recovery Connections of Central Florida to try to get some help. I'll tell them to go straight to a meeting and raise their hand and have the courage to say, I'm struggling here. I have no place to live. I don't have any money. I want to stay clean. I need some help. You never know who's going to be at that meeting that's going to come over and say, hey, man, let me talk to you for a minute. What's your situation? And you never know, that chance meeting, that butterfly effect, or whatever you want to call
domino effect.
Or like you being at the right place when someone was talking about the drum circle and you getting into that. All those things happening, like you talked about earlier today about
the young and free.
The young and free. They're throwing a dart and hitting a apartment complex and moving there. And the AA meeting's right across the street. And you ended up being the DJ there, which got you plugged into recovery.
And Club Soda, that whole Club Soda thing never would have happened if it wasn't for young and free.
So many things happen like that in our recovery, right, in our lives. The newcomer, if they don't stick around, they don't ever get to experience that.
That's right.
But it will happen. And sometimes to start, and I have a great team, man. This ain't all me. I mean, I answer the phone, but then I have housemen. I have a house mom, Sherry, God bless her, and Eric in long-term recovery. You know Eric T from New York?
Eric
He's
T.
one of our housemen.
Shout out Eric. He's a regular viewer, by the way, to the podcast.
Eric T,
he might be in the chat room. We'll catch up on the chat room in a minute. But
he
Eric
just celebrated 30-something, I think, or 31, and so he's a great houseman. And then we have Mike, one of our clients, 8 years ago, and now he's been a houseman for like 3 or 4 years. Houses, so.
See, man, that just goes to show, like I said, Marvin, you truly are saving people. So let me just recap for a minute, because I did want to ask one question. So you got to have 30 days clean, can't be on subs, can't be on methadone. And now, do you have to have employment?
So you don't have to have employment, but you have to be able to pay rent upon arrival. And the reason that we do that is because if we didn't,
you got bills to pay.
I mean, if we didn't do that, we would have our house full of people, or half full of people that were waiting to get a check or waiting to get a job. And I get it. It's hard in the beginning. It's hard. But we are a for-profit business.
Yes,
we're not
I
nonprofit.
get it.
There are nonprofit places out there. There's Foundation for Life.
Sure.
There's Fresh Start Ministries. There's a couple of others that are out there that you can get into with nothing. Little different programs or whatever, but sometimes those clients will go there for 6 months. They'll transfer from there to us after that. After they get the job, after they're making some money, they paid off some debt. They're paying restitution. They're going to probation. That kind of stuff.
Now I'm just asking asking because, I've been in, my share of recovery centers and IOPs and all that other stuff. So I'm trying to envision now, when someone does get in there, do you guys have like house meetings? How's that all
Right.
go?
So at least 3 NA or AA meetings every single week without fail have to be documented for the first while. And we have a house meeting one night a week that's mandatory.
Right.
It's usually 6 or 8 o'clock. And that's where we do, it's like accountability meeting. We talk about what's going on. Have you found a sponsor? Have you started sharing at meetings yet? Have you talked to your kids? We don't open up the big wounds there because, we just, we save that for sponsors and counselors and things like that.
Yeah.
So just kind of challenge the client to do more. Come out of your comfort zone, like I was talking about earlier. Go ahead and walk through that fear. And walk through that meeting. Be proud. Walk in that meeting and share in that meeting.
Hold your head high
and raise your hand and ask questions. They might say, "Well, I'm really struggling with." Asking someone to be a sponsor. I've never done that before. It's just weird.
It is weird.
And I'm like, okay, so what you do is
you
you go to the next meeting. When's your next meeting? They'll say, well, tomorrow night. I'm like, where's it at? Okay, so go there. I say, raise your hand. Right at the beginning. Don't wait till the end. Right then. I'm Joe, or I'm Mary, or I'm Marla, and I'm new and I'm scared, but I need a sponsor and I don't even know how to get one, and I just need some help. Thanks, that's all I got, and that's all it takes. And then the meeting will be about sponsorship and recovery.
And then also, for anybody who's not familiar, there's always what we call the meeting after the meeting, where we hang out outside for a little while, we go out to eat, go have coffee, you meet people, you become part of the community. Then it becomes less awkward and more comfortable to do something like that. So let me ask you this, Marvin. If someone were to call the number, because like I said, we do have people who watch and listen to this podcast, they're still struggling. If and by the way, I should mention, you do not have to live in Central Florida to apply to live in one of your places, because sometimes people want to get out of that using environment from another city or another state.
You get calls from all over the United States, Colorado, California.
You go. That's what I'm saying. Yes, thank you,
we have clients come down from Tennessee.
So,
all over the United States.
Okay, so if somebody calls the number, and let's just say, I'll just ask, do you ordinarily always have beds available, or sometimes are you filled up, you put them on a waiting list?
Sometimes we're filled, we put them on a waiting list, and we'll call them back.
So the part of the reason I ask is because that number's posted now, and like I said, the recorded edition of this show, it'll be on the YouTube channel from now on. So people can call that number.
I'll be answering. You'll be talking to me.
There
so
you go.
Call, if I don't get the call, I'll definitely call you right back as soon as I can.
Yes, and so again, y'all, if you're looking for a recovery house, we'll just call, a lot of people call them sober houses, sober living, whatever.
We like to call them recovery residences.
Recovery residences. There you go.
We have a welcome mat.
Yeah.
Welcome home, actually, it says at our houses.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's how we say it when people come into NA meetings for the first time. Like, hey, welcome home, bro. So I love that. So let me ask you this, just picturing, so I would think, that a lot of people you get just came out of maybe like a 30-day rehab,
Correct.
But not necessarily everybody,
no,
right?
Some people come from incarceration.
Okay.
And sometimes they will have a family member, or they will have somebody that's willing to step in and take care of their rent for them. I always like to tell people you need a good month cushion.
Yeah.
You need a month cushion so that you're not stressed out. Like, oh my God, I just got a job. You get a job, they hold you back. You start in the middle of the week, they hold you back 2 weeks. You get your first check, it's $67.
Yeah.
So we get it. We get it. So, and there are places out there like Recovery Connections that sometimes help people financially also. So there is help out there if you look for it.
Well, and you know what, Marvin? I think a good way maybe to bring this full circle is something you said earlier, and I really appreciate everything you just told us. And it just goes to show, y'all, because, you were quite frank about the requirements for living in one of your recovery houses and things to that nature. Right. And I appreciate that you shared, not necessarily everyone who may inquire will qualify.
100%.
But what you did say is, at the very least, you will point them in the right direction. Give them the information they need. Sure. And then maybe even say to them, you know what, you're not ready for what our requirements are yet, but check this place out, and then if you want, you could still maybe come back to us down the road.
One of the things I will often say, someone will call and they'll say, I got 10 days clean.
Yeah.
I just started a job.
Right.
And I don't have any money. And I'll tell them, well, there are a couple places you can go.
Yep.
Maybe they might have some availability. But what I'm going to tell you to do, Or they'll say, I do have the money, but I only have 10 days clean. I'm just detoxing off of opiates or whatever it is. Yep. And I'll say, well, here's the deal. Call me every day.
Yeah. I like that. Accountability.
If you call me every day, if you really want to live in my house, you call me every day. You stay clean. You go to a meeting every day.
Right.
And I'll even see you at that meeting because I'll probably be there too.
Right.
And if you really want to live in MBS, call me every day, go to a meeting, keep in touch. And I may make an exception, and I have made exceptions because I don't want them to die.
Yeah.
At the same time, I can't bring somebody into my house that's still an active addiction that just got clean, that might use in the house and put somebody else's recovery in danger that's got 6 months, that's finally got 6 months clean, that's got a job, that just saw their kids for the first time. Or, maybe they're talking to their significant other again, or their dad's back in their life, or they got health insurance for the first time in 17 years, or whatever it is. That's what happens. Or they just started Marla's drum circle. I mean, seriously, for real, right? And so we have to be careful. We just have to protect the
integrity.
Well, the vibe, the hood, whatever.
What
am I trying to say? Anyway, I missed my...
The security, if you will, of the house that other people are living in,
Protect the herd. I was trying to say the herd.
Protect
I just had an issue, so my brain's not firing.
Well, you know what? Properly. Hey, man, we're getting older, Marvin. I remember it ain't what it used to be. But you know what, bro? I am so glad you explained it the way you did because, hey, y'all, didn't I tell you when we started the podcast tonight, Marvin and Marla, Marvin is a real one, okay? And as he just said, if you're looking for a place and you call, you're probably going to get him on the phone. And if he can't get you into one of his houses, they got a waiting list. If you may not qualify as of the day of that conversation, he'll maybe guide you through it to a point where you could get into one of them, and you don't have to necessarily live right in Central Florida. As I mentioned, sometimes, there's that old saying in the program that you can't run from your problems. Wherever you go, there you are, and all that shit. I get that program lingo. Yeah, it is. I'll also say there's something to be said for removing yourself from an environment. We had a girl on last week, this wonderful life coach. Her name's Melissa Dawn, and she said, man, you can't always get healthy in the same environment that you got sick in. And so I loved that she said that. If you see this, Melissa, shout out. Thank you for saying that. And so the point I'm making is, if we have other people watching or listening in other cities, other areas, other states, maybe this is an option for you. Get yourself out of that environment. Maybe come stay at one of the, mind, body, and soul recovery houses and get your life back on track and start living clean. So thank you again, you guys.
Thank you.
Marla, man, I feel like we've been neglecting you over there, but me and Marvin, man, we get talking this recovery stuff. We can talk all night, and I know you're the same, so I just ask, because like I said earlier, I know you sponsor some girls in the program. You're very active in the recovery community in Central Florida. I would venture to say you're probably familiar with everything Marvin's doing with his recovery houses, correct?
I think it just makes a really big difference if you're in recovery and you're doing a recovery program.
For sure.
That
it's like going to see a counselor
instead
to
of
help
just
you.
making it a business.
Right. It's like going to see a counselor about addiction, and they're not an addict.
Exactly.
That is a great point, Marla, and that's something you actually said, Marvin. People call you, and then, hey, all right, man, well, I want you to call me every day, and I want to know what meeting you're going to. Matter of fact, I may even be there, because that is important, Marla. I think, if someone's actually lived that, they can certainly provide information and feedback at a higher level than someone, with all respect, Dean, I know you're in the background, than a normie. You still with us there, right, Dean?
I am still with you.
I know you are. Dean's a rock star, by the way, everyone. In case you didn't know, Dean is with us today. He missed last week's show because he had a mishap and broke his freaking leg. And there he is, but, he agreed to do the show tonight. He's actually, and I know you don't mind me saying this, Dean, he's literally sitting in a wheelchair right now with a broken leg.
No, I moved over into at least a little more comfortable chair.
Oh, okay.
But I've got, for a while there, I had my foot up because, when you got to keep your foot elevator.
Yeah, so don't get too swollen. But Dean, I really appreciate you keeping us on the air and bringing the slides up and all that other stuff. And so what I'd like to do right now, y'all, and like I said earlier, I appreciate, all the time you're spending with us. We're just going to go into some opioid crisis news, just a couple quick stories. And I kind of like to get y'all's take on this. So
before we do that, let's let's
catch up on the chat room. Yeah.
So let's see. Anna Jones said
that's our vice president of Drums and Recovery.
Okay, that's one of your contacts, Marla?
Right.
Yeah, Anna.
Yeah.
There's my daughter, I think.
And what does Anna say? You rock, Marla. You too, Marvin. Drums and Recovery saves lives and uplifts our community. Hell yeah, Anna. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Anna.
Hang on. I got to just kind of let you see it a little bit better. So, Christine Lilly.
Okay, that's your daughter, right, Marvin? Yeah. Shout out, Christine.
Yeah, she responded to
She's
Club
saying
Soda.
Club Soda. I used to carry her there when she was about, I don't know.
No kidding.
Little baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Our recurring newbie, Eric Fortuna.
Oh, now, Eric, I got to do a quick shout out to Eric, y'all. And I know Eric won't mind me mentioning this. Y'all, Eric joined our podcast like 3 weeks ago. And he's coming to us from up in Brooklyn, Michigan, way up in Michigan. And he's been open and honest with us that he's still struggling. He's hooked on opiates. And he's the one, Dean, who last week when I talked about your motorcycle mishap, who said, wow, tell Dean, I said, be careful. That's how I got hooked on them pills. So, Eric, man, I hope you're enjoying the show tonight. I hope you're getting something positive out of this. Just putting it out there, man. If you paid attention to our conversation with Marvin about his recovery houses and stuff.
I think that's what he was responding to.
Maybe something like you could work toward.
Sounds like a good place. He responded to it, and I think that had something to do with what Marvin is talking about.
So get clean and give me a call, man.
Yeah, Eric, thank you for watching and tuning in again. Who else we got in the chat room?
This Rockstar M5 just keeps popping up, and he wants everyone to hit that like button.
Yes,
which, I can agree with that.
Shout out Rockstar 5. We agree, man. The more subscribers we get, and we don't say that necessarily for self, what's the word I'm looking for selfish purposes. We say it because the more subscribers, the more likes, the more shares we get, the higher our channel comes up in the algorithms. Mm-hmm. So when people are looking for information on this type of stuff, we come up higher in the search to hopefully help people. So thank you for that. Who else we got, Dean?
So Eric posted again. He's happy I'm around tonight. And,
all right.
And then Brand email just popped in.
Yeah, she's one of our clients. I know she wouldn't mind me saying that. It's broker anonymity, but I don't think she gives a damn. So.
Well, hey, she said y'all are all doing great, and you guys are doing great. So shout out to everyone in the live chat room. I see we still got a shit ton of people watching. I can see it, the little number here and listening. So thank you to everybody that's still tuned into the podcast. And, of course, we always like sending a shout out to everyone who watches the recorded version, too. So right now, let's go ahead and transition to the opioid news and talk about this a little bit, y'all, because we do touch on the opioid crisis in the news each week on the show, and this has been a topic that just keeps coming up a lot lately because it is a timely news story on this. The U.S. Supreme Court right now is hearing debate and argument over the opioid settlement money with Purdue Pharma. Now, of course, Purdue Pharma is the pharmacy that, started OxyContin. They're pretty much the ones that everybody thinks is the bad guy, the Sackler family. They sold everybody up the river on OxyContin saying it wasn't addictive. And there's been all these shows and movies and documentaries all about them, Dope Sick and all the rest. And so they agreed to a $6 billion settlement with the caveat that there can be no civil suits against the Sackler family, no individual lawsuits suing them if they, agree to pay this $6 billion, which, let's think about that for a minute. That's a lot of fucking money, man. How is that all going to be diced and sliced and distributed to help clean up this mess that, and all the fatalities we think about that they helped create, that they were kind of the catalyst for. Because I do want to say this, there's a caveat, they weren't the only ones responsible. As you and I talked about earlier today, Dean, there's other multi-million-dollar settlements. We're going to talk about one in a moment in Oklahoma with CVS, with Walgreens, with other manufacturers of these drugs that all kind of came after Purdue, distributors. Yeah. So
basically
now,
dealers.
Yeah, legalized drug dealers, because I say this a lot on the podcast, Marvin, that not only did we get sold up the river, and I say we did because I believe we did, not only did we get sold up the river by Big Pharma, but we also did by our own federal government, who looked the other fucking way and let this shit happen, man. Who got paid off in political action committees and contributions and all that other shit when, you know, when we boil it down to the least common denominator, now we all know it's fucking heroin in pill form. An opiate is an opiate and is an opiate. See, that's why I feel so naive, bro, so stupid that I didn't know better when I started taking that shit, because it's like, I compare it to like alcohol. I don't give a shit if you're drinking wine, you're drinking beer, you're drinking cocktails, liquor, you can call it whatever you want. Guess what? It's all alcohol and you're drinking to get drunk. Okay, you can say, oh, well, I'm just taking the edge off. Oh, we're just going out for a cocktail after work. Fuck you. You're going to get drunk. You know, you're catching a buzz. Whatever. I get it. I'm sorry, y'all. Yeah, I said it. I don't flower it up too much on here because I get fired up about it. Alcohol is alcohol is alcohol, no matter what distribution form you use to put it in your body.
It's the worst drug on the planet.
It is. Absolutely it is. And it's the same with opiates. I don't give a fuck if it's Vicodins, Percocet, Oxy, heroin, Demerol, Dilaudid, you name it, they're opiates. Now, granted, there's different potency levels and things to that nature. I get it, just like there is with alcohol. You do a shot of booze, that's the same thing as drinking one whole beer. A shot of booze is 1.5 ounces. A beer is 12. You get it? So it's just, but anyway, man, I get fired up talking about it because it almost killed me. You know what I mean? It almost killed me, and it made me feel like I wanted to die at the end when I was dope sick. And so with all that said, man, you know, there's this debate going on in the Supreme Court now, because although Purdue has agreed to the $6 billion settlement, they haven't released the money yet because this lawsuit is pending, because there are some people saying, hell no, we're not releasing y'all from individual lawsuits or potential civil suits. Why should that be a caveat? Y'all need to get this $6 billion out there to try to start helping people. And by the way, I want to add this little caveat to it too. I've said $6 billion's a lot of fucking money, as we know, man. There's always some shit in the game. And some of that money, you and I both know, is going to end up in somebody's pocket that it shouldn't.
It's going to end up in some attorneys' pockets.
Yeah, too. Attorneys. Oh, you know they're going to get a big part of it. But I'm sitting here listening to y'all's programs tonight thinking, Marla, you got this nonprofit that's helping save people from little kids whose story you told us, all the way to veterans with struggles with addiction and PTSD. You, in my opinion, are part of the solution. Not you just are part of the solution. You should qualify for some of that. Marvin, you're saving lives with these recovery houses.
But is $6 billion, is that enough?
Hell no.
Not
in my opinion.
Think about the trickle-down effect of what the opioid crisis did.
Yes.
The marriages that were lost.
Yes.
The lives that were lost.
The
jobs that were lost.
Yes.
The DCF taking the kids. The people ending up on the street.
Say that,
and detoxes under, you know.
This whole homeless problem we're struggling with is attributed a lot to the opioid
thing. So $6 billion may not be nearly enough.
Marvin, you asked a good question. Is it enough? And I would say for the parents of people who've lost a child, for children who've lost their parents who died from an overdose, there isn't enough. There just ain't, you know. And you know, a lot of these people, man, need to be held criminally accountable, not just financially. I see you shaking your head, Marla.
They have a whole opioid dom at the jail.
Yeah.
Seminole County.
Yeah.
They have whole cell blocks just for drug users.
Yeah, you know what? I've talked about that on this show before, and they got a pretty good program up there.
The OPOD, right? It's called the OPOD. We've actually got
drums and recovery there.
Did you really?
I did.
We've gotten clients from there that have gone through there, been on the Suboxone, got off the Suboxone while they were in jail, detox, stayed clean, and came to us from there.
Wow.
Through Matt Houston helping when he used to be involved with them. He's now Recovery Connections.
Well, I'm glad you guys brought that up, because I've talked about it on this podcast podcast. And for those who aren't familiar with the Central Florida area, there's a county here, Seminole County. They have an outstanding program in the jail there to help people who get arrested and are incarcerated.
They really do.
And they go right into full-blown opiate withdrawals, which is horrible, y'all. I've said it on this podcast many times. Going through the withdrawals I did was the worst thing I've ever been through in my life. Now, granted, it's different for different people depending on how long you've been using it, what dosage you were using it. I was on that shit 9 fucking years snorting heroin at the end of it. Marvin, you know me. Can you fucking believe that I would be I can't believe it, but that shit had me so bad, man, and I would get dope sick because all that shit's laced with fentanyl now. I could be fucking dead right now. You know what I mean? I told Dean on this podcast a few weeks ago, man, I got clean, in my opinion, at just the right time. Fentanyl was a thing. It was out there. Not at the level it is now. And if I was still using and still alive, it would just be a matter of time, man. It would just be a matter of time. So anyway, yeah, you can't really put a price tag on it for people who've died. I'll also say, we mentioned earlier when we were talking before the show that guy, Dennis Salvaggio, local Central Florida attorney. Everybody knows him, Orlando Magic Fat Guy. Shout out Dennis, by the way. And we had him on the show, and, he's a criminal defense attorney, and we talked to him a lot about this topic. And without skipping a beat, when we brought it up, man, he chimed in and he said, oh, man, this money needs to go to the families of the victims, people that died. Think about the suffering that them people gone through. Man, we all have kids. That's a parent's worst nightmare to lose your kid to anything, let alone a drug overdose. It's totally preventable. So anyway, y'all, we get fired up talking about this, man. Well, we're just another one of them watchdogs keeping an eye on this topic, man. And so they're debating it in the Supreme Court right now. Thought we'd talk about it a little bit. The latest I've heard, y'all, and what I found in the news is they're thinking about just sending it to Congress and letting Congress decide. It's going to turn into some fucking bipartisan thing, and the Democrats and the Republicans. And that's what I was saying earlier. You talked about attorneys. Unfortunately, what happens a lot, that attorney speak is delay. And if they just keep putting this shit off and delay, that fucking $6 billion just sitting there. You think the Sackler family gives a fuck? They're like, oh, hell no. Keep it on delay as long as it can. And I really hope that don't happen. So anyway, I guess what we could call the good side of this, Dean, if you want to bring up that next story. And as it says here, after a slow start, the opioid settlement money is expected to start to flow to cities and to counties in the state of Oklahoma. If you go to this publication and look it up, you can read the whole article, but they talk in depth about it, how exactly what you touched on, Marvin, who is going to be deciding where this money goes. What committee is formed? Who's on this committee? Man, I just think it's so important for this to be, talked about openly.
Something I'm thinking about. I mean, the money's good, I guess, and yes, the family should the kids that have lost a mother or a father or whatever should benefit financially in some way for sure. But the bottom line is, and I know, that's all good and fine, but the only thing that's going to slow addiction or stop addiction in communities and things is things that like what we're doing right here. Recovery.
Get on the front end.
Grassroots, drums and recovery. Recovery houses. There's all these grassroots organizations around the United States of these people that get clean and decide they want to do something to help the recovering addict. And that's what's going to education.
Education.
And education to the children to keep them from taking that first hit when they're curious about, maybe this is, I'll just try it once or whatever. And we know what happens.
That's saying now, one pill can kill, man. That's the saying now. And it's true.
We've said before, Narcan.
I got to tell the story.
Yes, please do.
Tell the story.
Yes.
This is like, oh my God, right? So I was at a meeting about 3 months ago, Believing in Miracles, Monday night meeting. And I was inside, we had the meeting, and we all circled up. It's a big meeting. We were all in the circle, and a guy runs in. We were doing the closing prayer, just getting ready to do the Serenity Prayer. And a guy taps me on the shoulder and says, hey, man, you got any Narcan? And I'm like, yeah, why?
At a meeting.
Yeah, he goes, why? I'm like, there's a guy overdosing in the outside, or this guy overdosing. And I just ran to my truck because I knew I had Narcan in my truck.
Right.
I didn't know where the guy was. I figured he was in the bathroom or something.
Right.
So I ran to my truck and grabbed the Narcan, and I'm like, where? And he's out here in his car. The guy's in his car.
Nodded out in his car.
He's nodded out in his car. They've already poured water on him, so he's kind of coherent. And they're like, well, give me the Narcan. I'm like, no, we got to get him out and get him on the ground, lay him on his side. Y'all settle down. Yep. And then the guy comes to, he's like, no, I'm good, man, I'm good. And they started to go. They'd already called 911, so 911 came. Long story short, got him in there, Narcaned him on their own, I'm sure, and got him to the hospital.
Yep.
2 months later, I'm at Friday Night Live.
Right.
And a guy walks up to him and he goes, hey, man. He said, you're Marvin, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I want to thank you for saving my life. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
Because I was overdosing in the parking lot of the NA meeting that night, and you came out and Narcan me. I said, no, I didn't Narcan you. But we all came out and got, made sure you didn't fall out and called 911.
Yeah.
And the guy had 60 days clean.
Wow. How cool
and
is that,
he's still
man?
going to meetings today.
Wow. I can't tell you how much I
was
appreciate
just like,
you telling that.
Oh, my God, bro.
Yeah.
I didn't have to use it, but it was there in case we did have to use it. And I know that some of the meetings are deciding to have some of that at the meetings now, too. It's kind of a little bit of a faux pas for some of the meetings, but some are deciding to have it at meetings because you never know when you're going to need it.
Well, I think it's a lifesaver.
Oh,
I know
it definitely is.
Dean is a big proponent of it. We've talked about it on the show. Narcan should be in as many public places as a goddamn fire extinguisher with the rate everything's going with
I
the
hand it
fentanyl
out.
now.
I ask people, hey, I got some. You want it? Because you never know when that one box is going to save somebody's life.
Yeah. And for our viewers and listeners who may not know, Narcan, to give you the short version, I'm certainly no scientific or medical professional, is an antidote for someone who is going through an opiate overdose. It reverses the effects of the opiate receptors, because what happens is when someone's having an overdose, they stop breathing and their organs will shut down. Well, the Narcan attaches itself to the opiate receptors and blocks it, and then they come to. And it literally saves lives. And I'm glad you brought it up, Marvin, because, Dean, as you recall, you've talked about it a lot on this podcast, that as part of that opiate settlement, Narcan should be available free anywhere to anyone who wants it, when actually now it was just approved for over-the-counter. You don't need a prescription for it. About 3 months ago, we talked about it in depth on the show, but it costs money. It's like $50 for 2 doses. That shit should be free.
There are advocates in Central Florida that are giving it away free.
Oh, yeah, there's that. Yep.
Who is the guy that owns the hotel? His daughter passed away to an
overdose. From the Westgate Resort.
Correct,
yeah,
correct.
yeah.
He distributes a lot. Recovery Connections of Central Florida has a lot.
Not Siegel.
Yeah,
Siegel.
David
It's
Siegel. Yep,
Thank you
shout
very
out
much.
David Siegel, by the
sure,
way. Yeah,
for sure. He's helped. He's been a very
in case you didn't know,
advocate.
y'all, his daughter unfortunately passed from an overdose, and David Siegel's very active in the recovery community.
He is definitely a philanthropist for the recovery community.
Oh yeah, shout out David Siegel. I got to meet him once when he was the owner of the Orlando Predators football team. Remember, Marla, you and I went to a Predators football game together one time. Yeah, and after the game was over, he was there, and I went down on the field and got to meet him. He's a great guy. He really is, man, and I'm glad you brought him up. But yeah, That's a good point, Marvin, because we've actually attended some events that we have talked about on this show that you can get Narcan for free. Mm-hmm. They're charging for it at the pharmacies for over the counter. It's about $50 for 2 doses, but you ain't got to pay no $50. You can get it free. Just
maybe
go online.
CVS and Walgreens should give it away.
I agree.
Since they were giving away the dope, why don't we give away the Narcan?
That's what I'm saying.
Maybe put that
man.
in the settlement.
That's what I'm saying.
Free Narcan to anybody.
Say that, bro. That's exactly why I brought it up with all this fucking billions of dollars of settlement money, but yet they're still trying to profit off of this whole mess by selling the fucking antidote. It's all a racket, man. At the end of the day, too many people dying, too many people dying, too many lives being ruined. And, I'm just so grateful for y'all coming on the podcast and talking about all this with us. Before we wrap it up, we want to do a couple quick shout outs. We talked a lot about music, y'all, and music therapy and how helpful it is. And, you being a musician, Marvin and Marla, with your drums in recovery. Well, I want to do a shout out to these two young guys that, oh my God, man, you guys may even know this one kid. His name's Kasky. And he's a young, he's a rapper, but he's so much more talented that just to describe him as a rapper, he truly is an artist. I mean, painting and, acoustic music and different stuff like that. But he's out of Winter Springs. And he's around 31-ish, something like that. My son, G, went to middle school with him for a year. And anyway, he's living clean now. And he used to use, and he kind of, using that phrase, glorified it in his music, like a lot of young rappers did, going back 10 years or whatever. And now he's living clean and rapping about living clean and very active on social media about living clean and spreading that positive message, man, which I think is fucking awesome, for young people. Because Marvin, you and I and Marla, we come from a generation where, if you remember, getting high was like, it was glorified. It was like the cool thing, Steven Tyler with a bottle of Jack, Keith Richards shooting dope, all that other shit, and now, isn't it weird? Now them guys are trying to live clean, you know what I mean? So it's gone full circle. But the point I'm making, I think it's fucking awesome that you got these young musicians and young artists out there promoting clean living, man. And so I wanted to do a quick shout out to this kid Kasky and this other kid, Angel Hill, because they just released, and there I am with both of them, by the way. I've gotten to meet both of these guys. They're really cool. Shout out Kasky and Angel Hill. They just released this song 2 days ago that's called Sunday Morning. I just can't encourage y'all enough to go on whatever your favorite platform is, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, whatever, and check out this jam, Sunday Morning. It's been on loop for me since it came out when I'm at the gym or driving down the road. It's that good, man. It's a good song. So check it out. Shout out to them guys. Okay, next shout out. I just thought I'd put a little plug in for Harry Rosen and his hotel chain. He owns about a dozen hotels here in Central Florida, from very high end to, affordable, we'll say, for a family. Orlando is truly the biggest tourist destination in the world. And so a lot of people come here and they're not sure where they're going to stay. And I happen to be staying in a Rosen hotel down on I-Drive right now. I tell you, folks, they're clean rooms, they're safe, they're decent places, In fact, they hold Frickna over at a Rosen.
Frickna's at Rosen every year.
It's the Florida NA convention is at one of the Rosen hotels. So I got to meet Harry, and he is Mr. Rosen, as we say, such a nice man. And this is going to seem tacky, but I'm going to do it any fucking way. There's that old saying, man, in recovery, sometimes we can hang with people at Park Place and Park Bench, and I've been at both, you know what I mean? Well, Harry's one of them Park Place people. We looked it up today. He's got a net worth of like $200 million. Freaking blows my mind, man. But he really, truly does care about people. You mentioned David Siegel does, and he is a real one, y'all. I happen to know that Mr. Rosen has a health care plan for all of his employees, fully paid health care. You hear about how expensive health care is now, and, the premiums and the deductibles are outrageous and all that shit. Not if you work for the Rosen hotel chain, man. He's a good man. So anyway, I couldn't resist sending a shout out to Harry Rosen and recommending anybody outside of, or even if you are in the Central Florida area, if you're thinking about spending time at a hotel and hitting the theme parks, try the Rosen chain. They're a good one. Okay, y'all, we like to wrap the show up on a little bit of humor, and ordinarily we'll show, a few memes at the end. I follow everybody's social media all week. People like to post funny memes and stuff. So I'll screenshot a couple and grab them, and we'll show them on the show. So, Dean, here's this first one. It was raining out earlier, if you remember, y'all, and I appreciate you driving through the rain to get here tonight, and I saw this one. I couldn't resist. You were talking about your dog earlier, Marvin. I got a dog, too, man. My little dog, Jazzy, and she hates going out. You got a dog, too, Marla? What's your dog's name?
Millie. Short for a million.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. But I thought
they end up costing you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I tell people all the time, man, hey, I'm an animal person. I love dogs, but I tell people before you get one, make sure you know what you're getting yourself into, because it's like having a child that never grows up, man. I mean, I love my dog. That's my road dog. That's my running buddy. You just kind of hate to see somebody do a knee jerk if they see a puppy, the little puppy, and then the dog gets neglected, because that does happen sometimes. So if you want to get a dog, make sure you're ready. But this is funny, the dog's looking out the window. Oh, it looks like rain. I'll just sit behind the sofa, So that's another thing. If you're going to get a dog, man, you will have to practice humility, because you will get pissed on, puked on, shit on, all that stuff. It's good training, I guess, if you're going to have a kid someday, you know what I mean? But anyway, I thought we'd share that little funny meme to kind of end things on a humorous note. And then this last one that we got, hey, wishing you a relaxing day. Here I am in my old stomping grounds of Central Florida, and that was always one of my favorite things to do when I lived here, and still is, by the way, lounging around the pool on Chase Lounge, and wishing you a relaxing day. So on that happy note, Dean, want to thank you again for being a rock star, coming into the studio today with a broken leg, for God's sakes, and in a wheelchair. Dean. Yes, thank you so much, Dean, and for holding it down and keeping us on the air and juggling all the slides and all the things you do. I hope you're feeling better. How's the leg holding up tonight? You've been there a couple hours with that thing propped up. You all right?
I'm good. I always take a couple of Advil at about this time, so before I go to sleep, and I'm looking forward to that. All
right. Well, I'm just going to say it again, bro. We talked about it on the front end of the show. I don't want to sound condescending, but I'm fucking proud of you, man. Throw them fucking oxys away. Like Marvin said, don't flush them down the toilet. We don't want them getting in our water. But when you're past, the anxiety of the pain with this whole thing, get rid of them, man. Don't leave them around, because
rip that script. Just rip it up.
Yeah, rip the script. Yeah. That's it, man.
Yep.
Well, and you know what? That's, real quick, it's like you don't want to leave them sitting around either, because you just never know, man. Somebody else can get their hands on them, old dope fiends, man. When they go to somebody's house and they go to the bathroom, what's the first thing you think they do? They look in your fucking medicine cabinet to see if you got any dope in there. So, you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. I'm not saying I know. I heard about it. Well, anyways, let's go ahead and wrap it up. But I think it was a great show, y'all. I am so grateful, like I said, to y'all for coming in. One of the things I'll mention that we've been doing, Dean, I should say, mainly has been doing this, is, it's kind of how people market these podcasts now, is we do what they call reels. And we even use this AI software where we'll feed the whole podcast into this software, and it cuts reels. It monitors different parts of our conversation that it thinks, wow, that's a good point. Like when you were talking about, the little kid story, how he started talking about, when he came out of his shell because of the music, or you talking about your recovery houses. So point I'm making is, we'll put some reels together from today's show, and then we'll put them out there. And sometimes, man, we get thousands of views on these things. So I'll make sure you guys get copied on them if you'd like to see them, And,
thank you.
And anything you do to, redistribute what we're doing with this program, much highly appreciated. So before we wrap it up, I always like to ask, Marla, I'll start with you first. Anything you'd like to add before we cut you loose tonight?
I wish you were staying another week. You could stay for the Christmas party.
Yeah, I know. Like I
can't
said,
even convince
Marla, I will be there in spirit. Okay. You know that, because I just love what you're doing. And thank you again for being on the show. Marvin, how about yourself, bro? Anything you want to add?
Man, just thank you for having me out, man. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Hopefully, we get a call or two and maybe save a life off of this. And I know people watch that are in the early recovery stage, or even people that have long-term recovery watch your show. So so it was a cool opportunity. I've never done a podcast, so it was a cool opportunity to be in front of the mic kind of in a different way, and just just share about our experience, strength, and hope, man, on what recovery has to offer, and just the opportunity to share some of the things I did. I was grateful that I was able to, and to see you again after it's been a while, man.
I know, it's been too long, man. It's been too long.
I'll have to get out to California.
Yeah, well, I meant what I said earlier. Both y'all always have a spot at my spot if you ever want to come out, man. And I'd love to have you, and we'll have a great time, man. And, I also want to say this, obviously y'all both have great stories to tell, and I could have had either one of you on individually at any time and talked with you at length. Being that I'm here in Orlando and I don't get to see you all the time, I just thought, hey, you were both available. I'm going to have you both come in, and you guys know each other. So, I thought it was great that we could all three get together and have this conversation.
And I had a truck full of drums. I almost brought drums in. I'd love to show you more about what we actually do on the drums.
Okay, well, Marla, y'all heard it. You heard it. Be careful what you ask for. Now we're going to have Marla back on the show again. And Marvin, I'd love to have you back at some point too.
Anytime.
We're going to have you back on, and we're going to have some live music from Drums in Recovery and Marla the next time we have her on the show. And we'll make sure that's not too far down the road, Marla. I love it. Thank you for that. That's a great idea. I love it, man. We're going to do it. So, okay, y'all, with all that said, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. And as I like to say when we end the show each week, y'all, if you're going through hell, that old saying, keep fucking going. You'll come out the other side. If I can do it, if Marvin can do it, if Marla can do it, other people we've had join in on the show, you can too. And for that boy, Eric, I just want to say, hey, Eric, again, thank you for joining in our show, man. I know you've shared openly with us that you're still struggling, man. We're thinking about you. We're hoping the best for you, and hopefully some of the information we shared with you today will be helpful and get you on track with getting your life back on track, man, and living and staying clean like we are. It can be done, and you can do it too. So anyhow, with all that said, y'all, we hope you can, join us again next week when we're on, and I'll be back on the West Coast coming to you live from Sacramento, and of course, Dean will be here live in Orlando. And before we close, Dean, anything you want to add?
No, just want to thank all of our participants in the studio and in the chat room.
Yeah, we had a very busy chat room tonight.
Everybody involved, stay strong, and let's look for a new year coming right around the corner.
There you go. All right, y'all, we will talk to you next week. Have a great week. Stay safe. We'll see you next time on the Dare Me podcast. So long.